Hello! There we go.
Hello.
Hello! Stop Spotify. Hello! Yes, everybody, welcome to this version of the Forest Pond. Hello! Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm just putting dumb stuff on my face right now.
I just have your reaction image in here, so I can't see all your Halloweeny things that you're adding.
I I will send you a
Please,
picture.
please. That's one thing that's fun with live 2D ones is you can add, fun stuff that'll like stick on your body. If I want to do that, I have to go through Unity, which trust me, I've looked into and it's something. But
That's fair. I have a hellhound now too.
oh, hey. Oh, that's cool actually. I think you should keep that year round. Okay. Oh,
Maybe.
interesting. Twitch
Oh
is not
no.
showing me who's in my chat, so this will be a fun time.
Oh no.
Users in chat is like, "Oh." Yes, Pon,
Oh,
hello.
your reactive PNG went away.
Oh no.
I
Of
want to
course. Of course.
refresh it.
How do I refresh it? Is there a way? What?
So when you go to browser source, the
Uh-huh.
browser source for it,
Mhm.
there's refresh cache of current page.
Oh, okay, yeah, let me find.
Although
Let me
you didn't
find
come back, so it might take you a minute.
a second. Let me see if I can't get it. So wait, so do I just go to like the Fuji Tech website?
Like, no. Like, your browser source?
Mhm.
Oh, wait, because I
Yeah, I'm like,
have.
I don't have access to the browser source on your end.
Oh, no, I meant I was doing. I did it. What I did was
Oh.
I did a thing. Yeah, you
Oh,
don't have to
okay.
do anything.
Okay, I
My
was like, huh,
bad.
what? Because my reactive image has broken multiple times in different collabs. So I'm like, did it
This
just
is.
do it again?
I have two dogs now. Actually,
That's exciting. I
I
wish we could have
have.
dogs in this game. Like actually have the dogs.
That'd be
But it's
nice.
fine. It's fine. Not every game can have dogs.
Um, Valheim, you could have wolves.
I didn't.
Yeah, you could have wolves, and you can have boars, and you can have these like big giant like they're literally a cross between a bison and a dinosaur, and they're called locks.
That's cool, actually.
Yeah, you can also ride them.
Ooh. All games should have
Yeah,
dog pun. You're correct.
all games should have dog.
Okay, one second. Let me go
That's the background.
invite you to the game. There we go. I forget that I have to
Yeah,
do that
I
for
will.
the forest that I'm in charge of this one.
You are in charge. I'm just adding one more thing, and then I will join.
No problem.
Where's I need the Ena tentacles.
Yeah, I'm excited to
Where
see how that looks. I think the
where
tentacles
did
will
they
be
go?
fun.
Did I not? No, I had to have added them. The problem is I don't know which one's which. So it might have been a
Oh,
weird name.
that's
Because
not the
because
best.
it gives you file names.
Oh, this.
Okay, I know a really quick and easy way to check this. You can I think load in at any time you want. I could just join you.
Uh, let me see. Let me see. Let me see if I can do this without you not being able to come in. We'll see.
I'm fairly certain you can come in after, or I can come in after you start it.
Okay. All right. It's just loading on my end. Lots of fun black screen on my stream right now while it's trying to load. Yes. Hello. There we go. Okay, I am here. No, I'm not. I was here for a second. Now I'm here. I'm back. Oh yeah, I have an axe. Forgot about that.
Right.
Oh yeah, and the bone chair.
Okay.
Tates,
Where
hello. How are you?
I did not.
Oh, I
I
should talk
did.
about the question for today. Throw it in chat here. If you don't have an answer to this, that's okay. I just thought about this because I had a thing happen. Oh, or don't stream elements. It's fine.
Oh,
There it is. Okay, it took a second. Streamlabs, come on. But
oh,
yeah,
here we
what is an
go.
irrational fear is the question for today. Oh, there's a lock in this. That's neat. Um, but so the reason why I ask, I was telling Senti about this before stream. But I have a really, really powerful fear of mold. That spurns from when I was very, very young. Uh, and I ask this question because a lot of the times people's irrational fears, they have them because of something that happened. And usually it's an interesting story. With me, it was I remember being in a car when I was really, really little. All my fears are completely irrational. You know what? Fair pawn. Um, but I just remember being in a car and my grandma and my mom were driving and they thought I was asleep and my grandma started talking about this guy, this thing that she saw on the news about this guy who accidentally inhaled like this very, very, very rare strain of mold, and it
Oh
like
no.
decayed the entire front part of his face. Like
Oh.
his nose melted off of his face.
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and for years and years and years, so yeah, that gave me a fear of mold. I won't breathe if I'm like around mold because of that. And for years and years, I didn't know if I like was actually like actually asleep and just it was like part of my dream that I like somehow remembered that stuck with me until literally last year. I was talking about this in our group chat, and Cerise, the lovely person who made my emotes, was like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about," and like started linking me stuff, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
Oh no. Oh my god.
Oh, hello. You're in the game.
Hello. Yeah, I
Yeah.
told you it would work.
Yeah, apparently that guy lived for quite a long time
Oh,
afterwards, though.
well, at least he lived.
Yeah, he did end up passing away from like complications of it, but like not for like years and years after.
Well,
Yeah,
it,
but yeah. So yeah, I'm the reason why I remembered that is I was cleaning out my pantry and I found like a slightly moldy loaf of bread that I forgot about.
only
Um
slightly.
Only slightly, like there's barely any mold on it. You could just see like a little bit of it, and I accidentally dropped the bag, and like some of the breads, like slices of bread with mold on it, fell out, and I was like, "Oh great, this is wonderful! I'm so happy." I actually I just remembered this. When I was doing like my first round of finishing school, I lived in an apartment with some friends. And, uh, I remember I bought like these pans from like a thrift store in this little tiny town that we lived in.
Hmm.
And we didn't realize that they were actually like two pans that were stuck together. And when we separated
Oh.
them, apparently the people that took it in also didn't realize it was two pans stuck together because like separating the two was like this just solid layer of mold when we separated them, and
Oh.
I literally like left the room. I was like, I can't be
Oh.
here.
Just hearing about that makes me
Yeah,
gag.
yeah, and it wasn't even like yeah, it was ugh. It was ugh.
God.
Small town thrift stores, man. Sometimes they're great. Sometimes you find really,
That.
really weird stuff. Oh, I need to familiarize myself with the controls of this game again.
Oh
Playing so many
no.
games, it's like, oh man, I just keep forgetting.
Oh no, Sumi's blocking my dog. Oh well.
Oh, I am?
Your
Oh, just on
PNG.
your end. Oh no.
Yeah.
You can make me smaller.
It's. I'll just. That's not you.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh,
Just
Tasty had
move you over
affiliate?
here.
Congrats.
Hey,
It is really
congrats.
overwhelming, like all the stuff they throw at you though, right? Like I remember spending days like figuring out channel point stuff, like it's so much. But it's hard to get
Yes.
affiliate, so like congrats. It's a lot more fun once you do. Like being able to do the interactive stuff is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That's
cool.
what I like
Yeah.
the most about. That's what I wanted to hit affiliate for,
Oh yeah,
honestly.
same, same.
Not even making the money, just
Just like let me do dumb stuff,
yeah.
please.
Oh, I forgot. Someone actually wanted me to make a new channel point redeem.
Ooh, for what?
Apparently, they really like my announcer voice.
Oh yeah, do it. Yeah, no.
It's
I'm
like the.
I'm
I don't know if I can do it right
eventually
now.
I'm eventually going to because I have to set it up in Unity, but I'm gonna make channel redeems for people to like put random stuff in my horns. But I have to
Nice.
make them in Unity first and tie them to my model in Unity, which great, wonderful. So happy to work in that program. Guess redeem loud caramel dancing. uh, there's actually Tates. If you look into it, I think there are some ways to make to kind of bundle some redeems and stuff. You could maybe I really don't know how well you'd be able to do this, but you could maybe set it up so that like you can also have lights. Your lighting scheme kind of changed so you can do that really really dumb meme that it's like outside the house with the lights flashing but caramel dancing's playing and you can hear it. Lizard. Oh.
By me.
Yeah, I've looked into doing things that will change the colors of stuff. And I know
Yeah.
kind of how to do it. It's just a pain. Yeah, trying to sleep while neighbors are dancing to caramel dancing. Yes, that's the meme exactly. Thank you.
What can I use rabbit skin for?
I've actually managed to kill 2 birds. Lizard. And now a lizard. Sorry, lizard.
I craft quiver.
Oh, I bet
Hey.
that's actually decently helpful. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
put the lizard on the drying rack and then wait, what the hell?
I'm just laughing at my model.
Oh. Well, no, just like I killed 2 birds and I picked them up, but they're not in my inventory. Oh no, there they are. There they are.
Yeah, yeah.
I just have so much stuff in my inventory because I'm a pack rat that I couldn't see them.
Yeah, that happens more in game.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to. Eh, eh, eh. There we go. I'm remembering how to play this game.
Hey.
Hey. Yeah. So last time I remember, we just built this house here. I don't know what other
Yeah.
stuff we have to do. Exceed high. No, I have not died yet. Thank you. I am standing next to the fire, so
Um.
things could break bad at any point.
What
Disappoint.
wood we
Oh, I'm
can
sorry to
pull?
disappoint.
Oh, right. I was building defenses
Mm, yes. Yeah.
because our last house. Oh wait, let me check something.
Mhm.
Oh yes, I do. I have to remake stairs.
Oh god, we didn't remake the stairs after I accidentally got them the second
Nope.
time. It's
Hmm.
fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, Tates was just talking about doing affiliate stuff. it
Oh,
it really does make
chainsaw
everything
guys.
so much more fun. Bert. Nope.
Timber.
Okay. I just think it's funny that I was actually slightly close to that. Not super close. Lizard, come back. Come back. Come back. I just have been really enjoying using the bow and arrow today for some reason. Lizard. Oh god, that was way too high. Okay, lizard. Come here.
I just.
Come here. Come here.
I'm.
Oh, stop moving. I can't grab I can't grab your meat if you're sliding down the hill. Oh wow, Pun,
What?
that is actually slightly cold.
Oh yeah, I forgot to pull your chat up.
That's cold for that's definitely cold for your area.
Oof.
I have my heater on because it's been cold and like gloomy and rainy for the past couple of days. And I'm just
Same here.
perpetually cold and I hate it.
Although today or last night, for some reason, the temperature was like, "Hey, I want to be 60 degrees now."
That's not the worst. That's my ideal temperature is like 70s ish, like 70 mid 70s.
That's
Always
not the
forget
right
it's in
case.
Fahrenheit. Yeah, I have a lot of friends and family outside of the U.S. succeed, and every time I like mention a temperature that's above like 30, it'll usually take them a second to be like, wait, what? Because like above 30 Celsius is like, are you dying? Are you guys okay?
The truth come out?
The truth.
I don't know why I thought of that.
Fahrenheit is a better unit for people. For people temperature, yes. For all other types of temperature, no.
For people
Oh, hey, log.
temperature.
Like measuring like a person's body temperature.
Yeah, no, this is for people
For people
temperature.
temperature.
Okay. Let me make sure. Boop. Actually, boop.
Hi, lizard. Are you just hanging out there on the? Okay.
How do I
Bye.
make this?
I do think it's funny that, yeah, sometimes in this game I'm like, I don't want to kill any animals, but then there are sometimes where I'm like, ha 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 ha. I just have a lot of
Leaser.
fun using you. I will still say lizard every time I see a lizard, just because I am that person that, on road trips says cow every time they see a cow.
Oh, same. I like cow.
The
Moo
gremlin energy
cow.
is leaking. I only have gremlin energy sometimes. It really depends
A
on my
lot of
mood.
times.
I don't have a I don't I guess my like barometer for gremlin energy is Jess, and Jess's gremlin energy is so
Oh,
high.
Jess is like Super Saiyan levels of
Yeah, no, Jess is pure
gremlin.
chaos. She absolutely is. But like that's
Yeah,
that's like when I think of gremlin, I think of Jess. So I guess just me being like, I'm not a gremlin. It's just me being like,
yeah.
oh, I'm not Jess.
You're like, I'm not Jess.
It ain't Jess, so it's okay.
Yeah, you're just like hee hee leaser, just like.
Yeah, no, I'm not at that point.
Yeah, that's that's not what I want.
The in-sound mind stream is filled with gremlin moments. Only sometimes.
Only,
I feel like I'm pretty okay in the in-sound mind streams. Timber, but I don't think you're anywhere close to me.
be funny because you're like on the cliff right above me. It'd be funny if the tree just came over and
Yeah,
killed me.
that's why I was like, huh. Timber,
Okay,
timber again, but I don't think you're gonna get hit by it. Just to be safe.
shiver me timbers. So I don't, I don't know what's been wrong with me today, but I've been just like, I just my gremlin energy
It's
has
high.
yeah, because I was like with Kira earlier and
Mhm.
we were streaming Phasmo, and he's just like, for some reason I was just being like smart ass comments left and right.
It happens. So sometimes, especially when I'm scared, I just like start just saying things.
I wasn't even scared. I was just like he would just he'd be like, I think the ghost is over here, and I'd be like, no, you.
God. You just woke up and decided to cause problems on purpose.
Yeah, pretty much.
How is the new Phasmo update, by the way?
Oh, it's really good.
Good. That's
Um,
fun.
there's the new ghosts are scary.
I didn't even know there were new ghosts. I just knew that there was like a decent update. Yeah,
Yeah.
Con, it did. I'm so sorry.
So there's a new map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew
There's
about
new
the map.
ghosts. One of the ghosts is twins.
That's neat.
One of the ghosts is a shapeshifter.
That's also neat. So is it harder to like figure out what type of ghost the shapeshifter is because it like pulls random bullshit or?
Uh, like it still has its own set of evidence,
Mm-hmm.
but like it One of the things I know it does is when it shapeshifts, it leaves behind like some kind of like residue or something.
Ooh, that's cool.
Leaves something behind that you can track.
That's neat. Pawn is dying just because she's gonna be, on the Phasmo stream on Friday.
I can't wait for that.
Pawn always, though, Pawn usually is just moral support in the van, which is
Oh,
okay. Pawn watches the
oh
watches the
no.
cameras. It's all good.
I just realized that my desktop audio is muted.
Uh-oh. Yeah,
Hey, hey,
exceed.
Kira.
There's gonna be a special stream on Friday, normal stream time, so 6 p.m. PST on Friday. It's gonna be me, Pawn, Finn, and Jess. So we're gonna have a full group doing Phasmo, and it's gonna be the first time the whole. Oh, it is. Let me see. 1 second. Let me. Where's my game audio? Why is it not? What? Why is it not? Huh? It should be playing.
What?
There's no reason why it shouldn't be.
Confuse.
Oh, there we go. Let's do this.
Confuse say.
Okay, there we go.
I feel like my game audio is loud. Let me know if my game audio is loud. Or at least this chainsaw is loud.
Yeah. Stacked squad. Yeah, it's gonna be really, really fun. It'll be stacked with gremlin moments from Jess, let me tell you. Like,
oh my!
usually Phasmo streams are Pawns in the van. I'm like, to stop myself from being too scared, I get like super just like focused on what we're supposed to do. I get very like task oriented. And I'm also very polite to the ghosts. Like overly polite. And then Jess is just like flirting with all of them. And then
You're
Finn is just like
polite to the
keeping
ghosts?
everything together. Finn is the one that tends to find the most stuff, I think. Finn is the most like stable out of all of us in a Phasmo game, I think.
Honestly, imagine being nice to the ghosts.
I'm always nice to the ghosts. I'm also just seeing though that I accidentally spelled your name wrong in my Cloudbot timer. So let me fix that. I'm sorry. I typoed it on accident. I put an O at the end of your name instead of an I. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry. Where? There it is.
Yeah, usually Sento.
Shut up. It's fine. No.
Greetings, I am Sinto.
Hello.
Hello, I am Sinto.
Sinto.
Noi Sinto Neil. Coming at you from Russian hell.
Tate says, I usually ask the ghosts their opinions on music and they whisper back in my ear. Oh my god.
Nice.
Usually, I'm just like, I'm just as nice as I can be. Hello, Sento.
Me on. Kira's like, ah yes, my glorious brother, Sento.
Oh god. Actually, have I talked about how like I don't speak Spanish anymore, but like I took like 6 years of Spanish in school.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So like I can sometimes understand when other people are speaking and I can read it pretty okay. But like my own speaking ability is garbage, which is also how it is with Japanese for me. I know way less Japanese than I know Spanish.
I've only just now started picking up on Japanese a bit.
It's a hard language.
It is.
I haven't studied in a minute. I used to study every day, but I've been bad at keeping up with it.
Thank you for clipping that, Kira.
What was I gonna say? Oh, yeah, I just like, I remember, because a lot of times, like, at jobs, people would speak Spanish, and, like, I would understand what they're saying, but I could only, like, speak English back to them.
Yeah, I get that.
I studied Spanish for 3 years and learned nothing. I mean, that's a mood. But there was one time when I think I might have already told the story, but I'll tell it anyway, where I was working at a craft store that was a different craft store than the one I was working when I started streaming. But, like, we had these little coupon things that, like, we were handing out to people that didn't start until, like, a day or so later. And so they asked, like, can we just like use it now since we don't want to come back tomorrow? And I was like, no, like, yeah, we can't use it. And they started saying to each other in Spanish that they were going to come back later when my shift was over and try and act like they didn't like understand that the coupon wasn't going to work until like and that they didn't speak English super well, so that they would get the discount on it. And I just replied to them in English, like, no, actually, like, the computer just won't read it at all, so we can't, like, actually physically use it. It's not just me being like, oh, I can't put the discount on it, it's that the coupon does not work until tomorrow. And they just looked at me. Like, they just, like, stared at me like, oh, she knew what we were saying. And I was like, yes, I did, thank you. Like, I can't speak Spanish back to you, but I do understand Spanish.
Oh, whoops.
What happened?
My stream's still in sub-only mode.
Oh, yep, that might...
My bad. There we go.
It's all good.
Is there emo only on too, or was it just sub only?
Might be. Do you use Seribot? Because yeah, like I saw earlier, like Seribot was online for some reason.
Emo. Oh no, emo only's on. Okay, or not on. It's off. Anyways, that's why nobody was talking. Hello.
There we go. Hello.
My bad. So how do you like my Halloween costume?
Hi, Zizis, how are you? I hope I'm saying that right. Zizis. I'm going basically off of a a saying I know of, like a road that's like outside of Las Vegas.
Good, because I can tell. Fair. Yeah, I forgot that Seribot was down, so...
It's okay. Keep what title, Pawn?
Oh, by the way, we should probably sleep.
Oh, maybe. I was like, do I have another lizard? Okay. So if when we wake up, if you need to eat, there's a lizard on the drying rack, and I have a lizard in my inventory. So we have many lizards. Okay.
Many lizards.
Many being two, but we have lizards.
Cause you taste lizard if you have coin.
God, I was drinking water.
Oh,
just when you said
sorry.
it, I just wasn't expecting it. Instead of staircases, can you destroy the whole house? Exceed? Senti destroyed the house last time. That wasn't me. I just did the staircases. I accidentally destroyed the staircases twice.
Okay.
I didn't knock down the house.
That looks... Yes, I am Taco Bro.
Step up your game. Oh, Pawn?
What? Wait, what?
How I did it was, I was chopping down trees over here, and the trees fell exactly,
on the stairs?
On the stairs, twice.
Twice.
It happened once, we rebuilt them, and then it happened again.
Yeah, so now I'm rebuilding them for the third time.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'm not actually mad.
God, you're giving me flashbacks to having to do gym stuff. Even in the forest, we did have to do the fitness gram TM pacer test.
Mm-hmm. We had to do it here in hell too.
Once it's coincidence, twice as you're cursed. What was worse is the second time I looked and I like tried to kind of gauge the range, and I was like, no, it's not close enough. It's not close enough to hit the stairs, but also I don't really have any depth perception, so I should not have assumed.
Hey, I don't have depth perception. Allow me to use depth perception.
Oh yeah, to see if I'll destroy a thing.
But thank you, Ellie, for appreciating my taco tentacles.
But no, I think the pacer test was like one of the few, like, one of those things where we did like fitness stuff that I was actually okay at. I was okay at the pacer.
How are
like,
you okay
everything
at
else.
that?
Everything else I couldn't do.
It.
Everything else I couldn't do. Like mile run, no, I was not doing that.
I was better at the mile run than I was at pacer tests.
I think I'm good at like like short-term stamina versus long-term.
That was short term for you?
The
Did
pacer?
they only make Yeah, did they only make you do it like a few times?
Yeah, they make you like literally. Ziz posted the whole like dialogue thing they would play on that tape in my chat. So like it was like 30 seconds to like 2 minutes, I think.
Oh no, they would just, well, when I did it, you're like, you're gonna go for as long as until the last person stops.
Oh really? Yeah, no,
Yep.
they didn't do it like that for us at all. Like there was a little tape thing that they played that like you would just try and get to the little eraser things in time. And if you
Uh,
didn't, you were just out, and they would just, keep doing that until no one was left.
yeah, yeah, no, it's just like, you just keep going until no one's left, and it get faster every time.
Yep. But yeah, like people would, obviously like drop out and stuff. But like I was okay at it. But like I also am not very flexible. Like that's just a whole genetic thing. So like, and I can't touch my toes. So like doing the whole like reach thing, I could not do. I can't do push-ups. I can't do pull-ups.
I can't do push-ups because of my back.
Mm-mm.
Because it's been, well, I might be able to do them a little better now, but
No,
kind of let my arm
I
strength
am
go.
weak. I am a weak baby.
Haha, weak babe. No, I was kidding.
No, I'm absolutely a weak baby.
Also, yeah, I got puppies. There's two.
Mm. Ooh.
I couldn't decide which one I wanted, so I just got both.
Yeah, that's honestly, if you can't decide between two, both. Both is the answer.
I also forgot, I have like a spooky, like, spirit fox thingy.
Ooh.
I also have wisps, but like I
Finn would
didn't.
love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, everything I have is free assets, so I can
We can't
give.
use them on ours just because we all have Vroid avatars, so you can't really like you can like put them on as like PNGs, but they don't like stick to you in any way,
Well, I
which is
mean,
less fun.
I don't know if you'd want the. I mean, do you want the puppies to, or
That's
the
fair. That's
foxes
also
to stick
fair.
to you?
Rabbit, hello, hi. How are you today? As you can see, a question for the day is irrational fears, but if you don't have one, that's okay. I just have a lot, so I was just like, I'll tell stories about like the weird irrational fears that I have. Like this one only happens sometimes, but I do get really irrationally afraid of dark windows sometimes. It depends.
That's understandable.
Yeah,
I get it.
it was started by by actually the online web series Marble Hornets.
Wow.
Yeah, I was way into the Slenderman thing, like when that was really big. And like the first 10-ish episodes of Marble Hornets, all of the Slenderman scares are like him in windows in like some capacity or another. Oop, I didn't want to do that. Put that away. How did I do that? Put it away. Thank you.
What did you do?
I brought out the walkie-talkie.
Oh.
Oh, somnophobia. I have a couple of friends that have somnophobia. Hey, Rabbit knows Marble Hornets. I'm very I didn't finish Marble Hornets. Yeah, I didn't finish it. But I think a lot of people like dropped off of like the Slenderverse series is after a point because it just got way too weird. It got really buck wild after a point. I will say, I was pretty active in Everyman Hybrid, which was one of the Slenderverse ones that was way out of, like, they had something happening on, like, every social media platform, and I think that was their downfall. Chucky does count Exceed, yeah, absolutely. I actually, yeah, I've talked about it recently on stream that I actually really love Chucky for, like, no reason.
Chucky's amazing.
Series. It's a really weird series.
It's really weird, but like I love it.
After 42, I think that's right around where I dropped off as well, Rabbit. The last one I really remember is the one where they like showed that Alex killed a dude with a rock and then Slenderman took the body. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? What's happening? Oh, do you still need food, Senti?
Do I what?
Do you need food still? I saw.
Oh no, I'm good.
Okay, cool. I think I still have a lizard. No, okay, no, oh, no, they're right there. Okay. I'm sorry, Exceed. Honestly, the first Child's Play is like actually scary, but like after you get past, I think it's the third one, right when they start becoming like Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, like when the of Chucky
Yeah.
ones, that's when Don Mancini, who's the guy that's directed every single Chucky movie, just decided to go buck wild for no reason.
He's like, fuck it.
We're killing people with rocks now? In Marble Hornets, apparently, after a point, they were like, we're gonna kill people with rocks now. But oh yeah,
So,
I was talking about Everyman Hybrid, which just got way too out of hand, just because they had like too many ideas. I was so
okay.
close to being a participant, though. I'm so mad. They had like this whole thing where like an evil villain character was recruiting people that he called rabbits, and I was so close to being a rabbit. I got taken out of the running like very, very like right before the actual like game proper for that started, and I was so mad. I have seen the rise of Leslie Vernon. I love Leslie Vernon. I think it is very underrated. I do think that like the last little bit, like once it gets out of the found footage bit, that Leslie Vernon's pacing gets a little bit weird. But I love the concept of Behind the Mask. Have you seen it, Senti? It's the one where it's like a documentary film crew making a documentary about a person who wants to be a serial killer.
I think I've seen parts of it.
It's really good, honestly, and it's totally because the guy that plays Leslie is 200% committed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And they do like fun stuff with it, like the world is like, oh, like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees are real in this world, and like being a slasher is something you can have as a job that you can like aspire to be. And like Leslie's mom and dad met because Leslie's mom was a final girl and the dad was a slasher.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. The first three quarters is a mockumentary, and then like the last quarter is just like a movie, and I feel like that's where it loses a little bit. But like I think it's a great movie. I think it's so fun. I just really like meta stuff though. I really, really like meta, especially meta horror, because the horror genre in and of itself is just so weird.
Yeah.
And you just have to like accept certain things.
Yeah.
Ah.
Almost done with these stairs.
Hey, yeah, we're close. I will not knock them down again. I've purposefully been only cutting trees from up here. I'm not going to cut trees near the stairs ever again.
Yeah, please. I don't want to have to build them again.
Oh, Exceed, this might be something to recommend to you if horror movies like still kind of freak you out a lot, but you like kind of want to know more about them, or you want to get like a little bit more information on them. There's a YouTube channel called Dead Meat, where they do like synopsises of horror movies, and they also count. Their series is called The Kill Count. They just count like how many people died in a certain movie, so you can get like you can experience the movie kind of without having to sit through like the tension of the scares. So like that's how a couple of my friends who really aren't into horror like have learned about the horror genre and have like gotten more into being able to watch it, because and for some people it helps them to watch like the kill count of the movie and then like watch the movie itself, so like they kind of know where like the scares are a little bit more, so it doesn't like freak them out as much. Yeah, let me know. And James and Chelsea, who run that channel, absolute angels of people. They are the sweetest.
No.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot that that the guy that played Herschel in The Walking Dead is Leslie's dad, right?
Oh.
He's a great
Oh yeah,
actor.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember now.
Alien. I haven't watched Annihilation, so I can't speak to Annihilation Rabbit, but I do think Alien is a really, really good like starting up for Ending Explained also is a great channel, Pon. Thank you. Ending Explained, that guy, I forget his name, but he does a really, really good job of just explaining things kind of beat for beat, and he gives some of his own commentary, but he really just kind of gets into it, especially on more movies that are a little bit like harder to understand if it's just the first time you're watching it. So if you don't want to have to watch a thing multiple times, Ending Explained is great. Yeah, he seems like a cool guy too. He doesn't do as much like personality based stuff as like Dead Meat does, so I can't really be like, oh yeah.
Excuse me?
Hmm?
There's a big boy.
Uh-oh. Where at?
Where we were cutting trees.
Oh, fun. Okay, I just walked out of that area, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm sneaking away.
Yeah, no, that's good. Oh, see, I can see seeing Alien as more of like a sci-fi movie than like a horror movie. It doesn't really get like super horror-ish until like closer to the end, but like obviously you do have the whole. Well, no, her in the robot suit, Ripley in the robot suit is in Aliens, I think, the second one. I get Alien and Aliens confused in my head a lot, which is sad. But I also haven't watched them a whole ton, so I'm not like I don't have it memorized as much as I have like other movies I've watched, dozens of times.
Are you using this log?
No, I'm not. I thought we needed more for the stairs.
We do.
Oh, we do?
We do.
Oh, I thought it was
Yeah.
done. That was my bad. How many more? How many more do we can game, show me. Game.
What?
Game. Oh,
There
no,
we
that
go.
was it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yay!
Oh, my.
Okay, we have stairs. That
We
I
do.
will I will be very, very careful next to.
Thank you.
We're not gonna rebuild them for a third time, I swear. Or that'd be no, fourth time.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna. Where's food? So
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's still another lizard. Oh, hi, friendo. No. Wow,
I'm
that's
gonna
making an
eat.
awful noise that I don't enjoy.
I don't enjoy either. I am,
Oh,
however, going
Blair
to eat
Witch is
this
so good. Blair Witch is so good. I am an absolute sucker for found footage, though. I love found footage horror. It's so good.
Fair. Yeah, it's. I don't know. It was my favorite, but I do like it.
Yeah, there's really, really, really good. One found footage horror. Well, it's horror and not horror. A found footage movie I think is very underappreciated is Chronicle, which like I swear nobody saw. Well, it got kind of popular. Have you seen the 2017 sequel of Blair Witch? I have, and I remember thinking that it was fine. I didn't hate it as much as a lot of other people hated it. I thought it was fine. I do remember enjoying the very, very last sequence, where, like, it was the girl, like, looking away from the witch, but she was pointing her camera backwards, so you could, like, get quick glimpses of the witch, and, like, it looked really cool. But, like, it was okay. Overall, the newer one was okay. They also made a video game of it that was super weird. The Blair Witch 2017 video game is weird as hell. Oh, there's that boy. 1 second.
Yeah,
Do I have...
I'm trying to lure this boy away. Shot him, now he's coming for me.
Oh, fun. Okay, I'm gonna get out of my inventory then before he sees me. Nope, he's seen me. I'm dying. Okay, goodbye. Leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone.
Release run away from...
I'm running. I'm running. I'm running. I'm running. It's fine. It's fine. I'm running. Is it gone?
Because
Is it
that
gone?
boy... No, it's not.
I should say, is it still following me? I could hear it.
No, it's dead.
Okay,
I
thank
killed
you.
it. You're welcome.
Yeah, Rabbit, you're totally right. Nothing beats the original Blair Witch, because, like, that was such... Like, people didn't do what Blair Witch did, really, back then. Blood for the Blood God, thanks!
Can we come out here and harvest this corpse?
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. That's a lot of limbs. That's so many limbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, if you look, kind of about, like, the all the advertising they were doing for Blair Witch, like, if they didn't, like, put credits at the end, I think people would have absolutely lost their shit. I think people would have lost their mind because they really pushed that it was a real thing that happened for a really long time, like almost right up until the release. Before, like, I think the actress, like the girl in it, kind of came out and was talking about it, and it was like, oh come on, couldn't have waited for
No.
another second. It's still really
Mm.
good. Um, I do also kind of like the theory for Blair Witch that the two guys, I remember one of the guys' names is Josh. I don't remember the other guy's name, but like the two of them were like either possessed or like purposefully trying to torment Heather, the girl there, because like one of them throws the map into the fucking river.
Oh yeah.
Like they like totally gaslight this poor girl the whole time.
From what I remember, wasn't like the actors like weren't they like ended up actually like arguing and fighting with each other?
Yeah, yeah. So the filming process for Blair Witch is also buck wild. They were just kind of told where to go during the day. I think it was like a week-long shoot, pretty much, like at
Mm-hmm.
least that part. And they were just like going through the trails that they were told to go through. But the director was not there. I think they had like radios and walkie talkies and stuff, but they weren't in the general area. But like, so
Mm-hmm.
they would go to sleep, and the stuff that would happen at night, they wouldn't be told what was happening. So like the scene where like the tent is being rattled, that's the crew. That's
Yeah.
and the actors didn't know. Um, and like they didn't know that, I think they didn't know that the actor that was playing Josh, I think it was Josh, that was like gonna get kidnapped. So like when they hear him like screaming in the distance, they're like, oh my god. I mean, it's decoration, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do remember the fake news broadcast, Rabbit. Like obviously I don't remember it because I wasn't in the human world, so I didn't have TV at the time. Um, but I've
Same.
watched some stuff about like how they did their whole press thing, and it's so crazy. It was so fun. They went so hard. But like imagine that you're on a film shoot, you go to sleep in a tent, and you wake up and you go out the next day, and there's all those little like the little stick things, the little like triangle stick things, just hanging all over the place, and like the
Oh.
crew did that while you were asleep. Like even though you know it's like a horror film shoot, I'd still be like, um. Also, you okay?
Yeah, I mean, I jumped on this with the intention of testing if it would catch me on fire or not.
I didn't catch. I would like the record to show I did not catch on fire first. I'm not gonna say I didn't catch on
Again,
fire
I
this stream because the night is still young, but
well, again, I at least I did it on purpose.
I mean fair. That sounds fun to you, Rabbit. Like it sounds fun in like some aspects. You got
Oh,
one of the effigies tattooed on your leg. That's cool. I love the design of those things. Oh yeah,
speaking
sorry. Go
of,
ahead.
I'm not gonna tell you where,
Okay.
but in the new Phasmophobia map,
Uh
there is Easter eggs for both Friday the 13th
huh.
and the Blair Witch.
Oh, that's really exciting, actually.
Yeah,
Someone needs to tell Cerise. Jason is Cerise's husband. Like 110%.
I I've always loved Jason. That's like one
Jason's
of the
great.
first things my mom introduced me to when she was introducing me
Oh.
to horror.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do
My
you
mom's the
remember
one that
like the
got me
first
into horror.
horror movie you ever saw?
The
Or
first horror movie I watched was, at least from memory, um, I want to say it was either The Ring or it
mm.
was Nightmare on Elm Street.
Those both have two very different vibes and would like leave
Yeah.
very different impressions. I do think a lot of people, one of their first horror movies was like The Ring or The Grudge because there was like that whole thing with it in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was Okay, so I've mentioned it before, but like I've only been able to watch horror movies for the past 10-ish years, about 10 to 12 years, just because my
Hmm.
anxiety was so bad I could not do it. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
no, I get
so
it.
like I haven't watched a whole lot, but I do remember when I was really really little going camping with my aunt, and they had like a little TV. Corvid! Hello! Hi, thank you for the raid! Sorry to stop mid-story, but yes, hello, thank you for the raid. Let me shout you out real quick. Um,
Also, we should sleep when we're able to.
oh yeah, we totally should. Yep. But so yeah, I remember going camping with my aunt, and um there were other people there, and like one, it was like a friend of my uncle's or something. Um Put on The Others, which is a horror movie with Nicole Kidman, where she like is in a haunted. It's
Oh,
honestly Others, great movie, and I've gone back and rewatched it. And it's actually filmed super well. But that was the first rated R movie I ever saw, and the first horror movie I ever saw, and I was so scared.
oh.
I was so scared by The Others. But then like
I
oh, go ahead.
no, you can go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but then like after, like I just got to a point where I was like, I want to watch horror movies because they look neat. Uh,
My
Tiago, hello, hi.
hello.
Hello.
The first horror movie that ever actually scared me was when I watched The Strangers.
Ooh, okay, yeah. The Strangers, like I both like and don't like, because I think The Strangers like has a really really fun like ideas to it, but also like there's
Hmm.
something that just intrinsically bothers me about the type of horror movies where the characters don't see the like killers, but the audience does, and so like the killers are doing stuff that like doesn't make sense because they're
Yeah,
trying to play to an audience. Like it, for some reason, just sometimes I'm just like, why are you doing that? What are you
I get
doing?
that. I think
Oh,
one of the main reasons it got me is because it was like based on a true story and also in an area nearby where I was living at the time.
oh gosh. Okay, yeah, that would definitely do it. I
I was
actually,
like,
Rabbit, I
I was
actually
like, oh,
haven't seen
this.
Eraserhead. I feel really bad that I haven't seen Eraserhead. Eraserhead's a Lynch movie, right? That's a David Lynch movie, right? I haven't watched a lot of David Lynch, and I should.
I was like, oh, you mean there is these murders? So for one, it was a thing that was entirely possible, a group of
Yes.
murderers.
Mm-hmm.
Two, oh, this happened like 2 to 3 hours away from me.
Oh yeah, no, that would have messed me up too. That would have messed me up.
And
Tiago
I
watched
was,
Conjuring 2. Oh, fun. Conjuring 2 is the. I need to rewatch the Conjuring series, but I think I remember liking 2 more than 1.
I like, hmm, I liked both of them for different reasons.
That's fair.
The first one felt more like it was trying to go for realism, as far as a realistic exorcism can go. And the second one felt like
Mhm.
how to describe it?
Oh, sorry. You
I don't.
enjoy your food, Corvid. Thank you again for the raid. And also, I saw that you were playing Night in the Woods, which is fantastic. I love that game so much. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're okay. You're okay. It's like I don't I don't want to say fantastic. Like it's very much more like, oh, here's a crazy, powerful demon thing,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and like they like and like they had a crazy name that reminded me of like the orcs from Lord of the Rings. It's like Balok the Defiler, and I was like, oh,
So
this sounds
sorry,
like an orc.
my brain blanked. What was this in? Sorry, one more time.
It's okay.
No, I was just like, wait, what's happening? My brain, because I was
Um,
trying to piece it together.
in the Conjuring 2,
Oh yes, yes, yes.
there was
Um,
the name of the demon was like Balok the
so
Defiler.
so in the first one, it's Bathsheba,
Yeah,
and I think that yeah, that's the first one because the second one, like Tiago, you're right, it's the Enfield Poltergeist, which is But they also had like
Hmm.
the Crooked Man in it, which is an urban legend and not a ghost. And like the
Yeah.
nun was also in it, and I forget the nun's like actual name. But I found out the
The
other day.
nun.
Oh, go ahead. Mhm.
The I was gonna say the nun was the Valak the
Oh
Defiler.
yes, yeah, yeah. Valak, I think is like
Valak,
spelled
Valak,
Valak, Valak.
Val,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
It's interesting.
I watched it somewhat recently, so
I watched them forever ago, but it like has stuck in my head. Oh, thank you for the feed my son redeem, Rabbit. Let me see. Where are you, Eddie? Where'd you go? Lava, where'd you go? You in the closet again? No. I don't know where he is. Hello.
all I know is those movies paint some terrible people in a positive light.
Oh, absolutely. Um, the Warrens. I'm not gonna get like super into the Warrens because it's very controversial. But like, yeah, the Warrens were
Mhm.
not the best people. From what I've seen, Lorraine honestly seemed pretty good. But it seemed like Ed, the husband, kind of as things went on, got a
Yeah,
little bit shitty. But from like every account that I've ever seen, Lorraine was an absolute angel, like start to finish.
that's what. Oh, Miko, hi! Thank you for the raid. How was your stream?
Oh, also, Rabbit, I love Midsummer with my whole fucking heart. Ari Aster owns all of my money for any movie that he makes. I will pay him and Mike Flanagan anything that they make. Take my money. Tiago, thank you so much for the sub. Appreciate it. Enjoy the emotes.
Oh, I'm glad it was fun. What were you playing?
Mhm.
Or doing?
Oh, I just realized
I
I don't have
left
your
him.
chat pulled up. I'm gonna do that. Oopsie.
You're fine. You read scary stories? Nice. I want to
I'm
do horror story reading stream at some point.
yes, do it.
I was trying to think, do I do it on Halloween or am I going to be busy? I don't know.
That's yeah. I don't know what I'm doing for my Halloween stream yet.
Yeah, I'm figuring stuff out.
Like I've thought about doing like creepy story readings, especially so like I have multiple different Edgar Allan Poe books. Like I have a lot.
Hmm.
I started reading Poe when I was way too young to be reading Poe. Um, but I also read books that were way above what I probably should have been reading. Um,
Fair.
but yeah, I've thought about like doing like readings of like Poe stories and stuff like that.
Nice.
Every time Ari Aster makes a movie, I 110% have to watch it, but his movies steal a part of me. That is absolutely true. Ari Aster movies take away a bit of your soul just from how much they hurt. How does he get women to scream like that? Like Toni Collette's like scream that she does in Hereditary. I won't say what she was screaming about because it's a spoiler, but like her screaming in the bedroom thing, that is the most genuine, grief-ridden scream I've ever heard in my life. It's so much. Hereditary also messed me up. No, absolutely, Rabbit. Hereditary messed me up. That's why I liked it so much. Oh god, there are 3 cannibals at the campsite right now, and they are coming after me.
Oh, I am nowhere even
I saw
close.
that there was one, and I went to go attack it, and then there were 2
I
more. So I'm just running.
think I realized I think I need to turn you down in Discord just a little bit.
Oh gosh, yeah, sorry, I'm loud.
No, no. You're fine. It's just I have you turn up to
Leave me
178%.
alone.
And I
Yeah, no.
forgot that you changed your settings around a bit more
Oh yeah,
and moved your mic closer.
yeah, yeah. I've changed how my mic setup is, so it helps a little bit.
There we go.
But no, my experience with Hereditary is like I watched it and obviously was upset because everything about Hereditary is upsetting, and then I went to bed and I woke up and I was still feeling like that exact same level of just like unease and upset. and that's never happened with like a movie with me before. And so I was like, oh, what? Actually, no, this is great. Usually, if something can like affect me emotionally like that, even if it's like a negative emotion, I'm like, great, 110%, love it.
Nice.
That's how come I recommend the Walton Files as, hey, this gave me nightmares for 2 weeks. It's great.
You know what? I'm gonna remove.
I actually got like more upset about Hereditary the more I thought about it after I watched it, because with how Hereditary is structured, like you don't really know what's going on until the end. And so like at the end you can start going back and be like, oh wait, what? Oh, that's what that was. Oh, that's what that was. Oh, like it's just like a lot of chain reactions of like, oh, that's actually even worse than I imagined.
Hey,
What's up? I'm chasing a lizard right now. What's up?
oh, you know what? Never mind. Oh, wait. I might need help.
Okay, I'm
That's what I'm
coming.
trying to say.
I see your name. I'm on my way.
Because there's like a whole ass army out here.
Okay, yeah, I'm on my way. But no, same
Okay.
same rabbit. I also love Midsummer. I think I like Hereditary more, but I think a lot of people like Midsummer more, and I understand why.
Christ.
It's definitely a little bit
One.
easier to consume, even though it's not that easy to to watch. It's a little bit easier to watch than Hereditary, I think, and it's a little bit easier to relate to and understand than Hereditary. So I understand why it's the more popular of his two movies that he's done. Ari Aster really just came out of nowhere and dropped two like genre-changing films, and then hasn't really done a whole lot since. Oh,
Okay, that's
hey, don't
enough.
throw rocks at me. I find that to be very rude.
Alright, bye Miko. Love you too.
Bye. Bye, Miko.
Have fun on your date.
Oh yes, have fun. How many arrows can you take, my guy? Dude, that's a lot of arrows. Hey,
The crappy arrows, quite a few.
that's fair.
Especially this one. This one is special.
Oh, really?
You can tell because he's super pale.
Oh, okay. In what way is he
Yeah.
special?
He's stronger.
Oh, just strong? Okay.
Yeah, he's just stronger. So, like, the more skin
Oh
colored
god, here
ones
come
are like.
these are the three that were chasing me. I think. I'm like
Yeah.
pretty sure. One sec, let me grab my club. Require my bonking stick.
So
Come here.
essentially, the
Hi.
more skin colored ones are like the weaker ones.
Okay.
The gray ones are, like the next step up, and then the like pale white ones are the strongest.
Oh yeah, we did get a katana. Well, oh yeah, I do have the katana. I forgot.
Yeah.
It's just like in my inventory, it's like way off to the side, so I just like don't see it.
I have mine hotkeyed, so.
Oh yeah, no, I keep forgetting to use hotkeys. I'm not good with hotkeys in games though, because I tend to like hit wrong buttons a lot because of how my hands are. Here, there's two more.
I do too, but
Okay. You know what? I will katana. Why not? Katana.
it is fun.
Hey.
You can be the weeb you always wanted to be.
Hey. Have you seen Midnight Mass? I have not yet, even though I just talked about how like Mike Flanagan owns all of my money. I have not watched Midnight Mass yet. I want to though. Because literally, Mike Flanagan made like the perfect adaptation of Doctor Sleep, and I was like, great, I will watch anything that you do forever. And then also just, Hill House and Bly Manor is so good. Mike Flanagan's cinematography is something that is just fantastic. I love how he makes movies. I do not like that he has like an affinity for hurting people by degloving their hands, though.
Oh.
Yeah, like there's in Gerald's Game, there's a degloving, in Doctor Sleep, there's one. I think there's one in Hill House. Like, it's so gruesome. It's so bad. I don't know why he's like, this is the thing I'm going to use.
And just so I'm clear, degloving is cutting their hand off, right?
No, so degloving
Oh.
is even worse. It's ripping the skin off the hand.
Oh!
Yeah. It's usually just the back of the hand, but yeah, it happens in Doctor Sleep and it happens in Gerald's Game.
Why?
So Gerald's Game is the Stephen King book about the girl that gets handcuffed to a bed and her husband dies. So it happens because she has to get her hands out of the handcuffs. And then in Doctor Sleep, a girl gets her
Ooh.
hand stuck in like a cabinet thing and pulls it out. And yeah.
Wait, what's the context behind her being handcuffed?
So Gerald's game is a weird story. It was considered to be entirely unadaptable for a while because of how weird it is. But the
Uh
context
huh.
is it was her and her husband. They went to this remote cabin to like, you know, rekindle their marriage basically. And the husband was like, "Oh yeah, I want to do like handcuff bondage basically." And so he handcuffs her to the bed and then dies of a heart
Okay.
attack.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he has a heart attack and dies. And she has, yeah. But so it's not that just like one of her hands is handcuffed, both of her hands are handcuffed to posts on the bed. And
I'm, s-
and
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
it's a really weird concept, but like, oh, a horrific thing to think about. And she starts like
Oh yeah.
hallucinating. She starts hallucinating like her dead husband like standing up and talking to her. A dog, because they're in the middle of nowhere, like this dog comes in and like is like eats part of his corpse. And she just has to
Oh
watch that
god.
happen.
Oh
But then
Jesus.
there's also this other thing that she calls, I believe it's the Midnight Man or the Moon Man, who's like, he has this really, really fucked up face. And he like
Hmm.
comes in the night and like watches her. And she thinks that it's a hallucination, but she finds out after she gets out of the situation that he was real and he was an escaped serial killer that was like running. And he was just in the same room as her, just watching
Just
her.
what?
And she didn't think he
That's
was real. Yeah, it's terrifying.
that's my god.
Yeah, because she was
That's
there for like 4 days, something like that.
oh
Like
wow.
multiple days handcuffed in one position. It sucked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's yeah. Gerald's game was considered unadaptable because of how weird that concept is.
It's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, Stephen King. If you describe a lot of his books, you're like, what?
Yeah, yeah. Because my mom was really into Stephen King.
I've never been the biggest King fan, but like obviously like some of his stuff I do really like.
Hmm.
There is the one though where it's demons that come out of toilets though. What was that one? I'm forgetting the name of it, but it was weird.
uh,
It was weird, and like one of the characters has like basically a mind palace. I'm googling this.
like an actual mind palace.
Yeah, like he has like another personality. And like you get to see inside of his head, and his head is all like filing cabinets and stuff. I remember this. Okay,
Okay.
Dreamcatcher. Dreamcatcher is the one
Oh,
where
Dreamcatcher.
the people get killed via toilet.
Why is it called Dreamcatcher?
A real thing that happened.
Why is it called Dreamcatcher?
I don't remember. I don't remember the
Uh,
synopsis of Dreamcatcher Catcher very much.
it's just okay.
Yeah, no, I just remember the toilet
I
monsters.
I'm sure a lot of these are drug induced.
Oh, absolutely.
You
Stephen King was
can't.
more cocaine than man through most of the 80s and
I
90s.
was yeah. I was gonna say like you can't just come up with this shit out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, and like he wrote The Shining like in the middle of his addiction and stuff, and like that's part of why Jack was the way that he was. Is he's like kind of an
Mm,
allegory of him. Apostle
yeah,
Apostle I've heard of. I have not watched it yet.
I haven't had the chance to really watch a lot of stuff
Yeah, I
recently.
I want to watch more than I do. I want to try and do maybe
Yeah,
in the Discord or something like do like movie nights every little bit so I like actually watch movies that I say I'm gonna
that's
watch.
that's actually um it's actually what one VTuber before I was a VTuber
Hmm.
what she would do. Just like basically is like I want to watch things,
Hmm.
but
Oh, hi everybody. How are we
just
doing?
like just like I'll just use my community as an excuse to watch the things I want to
I
watch.
mean, why not?
Yeah,
I've
I've
heard Stephen
thought
King does
about it.
not remember writing some of the things that he wrote. You are correct, Tiago.
That's true.
That was who I was talking about, Tiago. You're right. Um, oh, hey, you're not dead. I might be dead here soon. I'm gonna run a little bit. I'm gonna move back a
Okay.
little bit so I can take some drugs.
I'll
Some
fight.
drugs. Yeah. I was talking about Stephen King. I forget,
Face me,
but
you
he has mentioned
coward.
like certain stories. Yeah, he does not remember writing at all.
Come here, you wee fucker.
Yeah, I cannot do a Scottish accent, even though a strong majority of like my family and offsets of my kingdom are in Scotland. I think that's why I don't do a Scottish accent, because I'm like, I don't want them to hear that. Get mad at me.
What?
Oh, what?
Where?
Huh? What?
Where'd he go? I killed I killed one of the cannibals,
Oh,
and
hey. Oh, and he just fell down
he.
that tree. I just watched him.
Oh, there he is.
I watched
That's
him.
where he
I watched
went.
him clip into the center of the tree and then slide through the center of the tree.
Oh, so that's where he went. He went up
Yep.
in the
Yep.
tree.
Hi,
Okay.
buddy. Wow, your
Because I was
face
just
is sure
here.
something. Huh.
I was here, and then he just like disappeared, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, no,
there
he
he
went about
goes.
halfway up that tree and then slid down it.
That, yeah, that's a deer. I'm gonna kill it. Come here, you little
Oh, I'm almost out of arrows. I forget.
sticks and feather.
I have feathers somewhere. God, I wish
Oh,
this had a list inventory. My brain cannot process all of these. I have feathers.
yeah. The feathers would be in your backpack.
Oh, there they are. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Help me.
Okay, one second, let me get out of my inventory. Okay. Oh, hi, friendo.
There's a giant spider lady with,
Okay,
or
yeah,
not lady.
I'm gonna craft arrows really quickly because I have like none left.
I need to take medicine. I have no armor.
Sticks.
Wait, yes I do. Just put on all the lizard skin.
Okay, remove. How much do I?
Dear.
Arrows is 5. Okay. How many do I have now? And now I have 4. Okay. How many? I have 7 arrows. Okay, this will be fun. Hi. Thank you, Tiago. I just barely saw it. So if you said it before I found it, I'm sorry. Hello. Should I try and attack it?
You know? Maybe.
I'm just gonna, if I don't have to, I'm not gonna.
I'm gonna shoot it with a crossbow.
Okay, have fun.
What the?
Whoop. Ooh, this is.
Come and get me, you 8-legged freak.
Wow, recovered memory. Did you ever see the really weird, I guess it was a horror movie, 8-Legged Freaks?
So I actually have a story about this.
Oh yes, go ahead, please. Tell me a story about 8-Legged Freaks.
So, so it was another horror,
Good job.
I guess horror movie I watched with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And from what she tells me, instead of being scared of it like, you know, most kids probably would be,
Mm-hmm.
I was apparently getting mad at the people in the movie because they wouldn't let the spiders eat them. And I was angry because the spiders were hungry and they needed to eat, but the people kept running.
Oh, that's cute. Oh, being like, come on, they're just hungry. They're just trying to eat. Come on. There's a lake around here somewhere, right? Because my thing is getting mad at me for needing to wash blood off of me.
Yeah, there's somewhere.
Yeah, I'll try and find it. Try being the optimum word here, but
I'll stay with you so you don't die.
it's okay. If I die, it'll be funny.
That man just slid out from behind the tree. I don't appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I heard him. No, friendo. Oh gosh, and there's another one. Where are all these? Wow, there's so many cannibals.
Nighttime.
Well, that's true, but like they're just really coming out of the woodwork right now.
Yep.
I just want to find water. Maybe I should wait until morning. If we're gonna keep getting assaulted by cannibals, because then I'm just gonna get covered in blood again.
Sir, please die. Are you dead?
Hello?
You are now.
Did you have to? Did you, Zombieland rules double tap?
Yeah, I did.
Another good. I'm enjoying talking about horror movies, but yeah, Zombieland was great.
Oh yeah, I love Zombieland.
Zombieland's so fun.
Hi.
The
There are
whole
a
the whole
lot of
sequence with
people.
Bill Murray is still so funny.
Um, the
When they accidentally
Sorry,
kill Bill Murray because they think he's a zombie.
yeah. Sorry, I'm like
Oh no, you're okay. No, I gotcha.
distracted by
By things trying to kill us. No, I gotcha.
yeah.
I'm also working on it. Oh.
I also need food soon, or I will die.
Huh?
I said I need food soon, or I will die.
Oh, yeah, I'm also getting kind of hungry.
Die.
Do I have a lizard? I have a
Be
lizard in
gone.
my inventory. There's one up in the tree. Excuse me, friend.
Yeah, they climb. Yeah, they climb the trees.
I'm sorry. No. No to that, actually.
If you walk around, sometimes at night, you'll just like if you look up to one of the trees, you can just see them up there.
Oh
They'll
god.
look at you.
Yeah,
Yep.
fuck all of that. Also, damn it.
That's why this game is partial horror.
Yeah. Haha! Sniped it out of the tree. That was fun.
Nice.
That was just more entertaining for me than anything. Okay. Whoop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. Ah, yes, this is why we hotkey things. I'm understanding now, because I can't change half of my bow and arrow. Okay. I'm learning.
Yeah.
I'm learning lessons about how video games work.
You're becoming a gamer.
Oh, man. I don't know if I want that.
But Sui, you could be a gamer girl.
God, no. I'm good. I'm good. I'm okay. Oh, do you still need food? I just killed a lizard.
I mean, I have food. I need food in edible form.
Ah, that's fair. Yeah, me too. I also still need to wash the blood off me.
Yeah, I mean, there's an ocean.
Oh yeah, I'm
Oh,
trying to get there.
our home's right over here.
Oh hey! Wow, yeah, we just kind of circled, huh?
Yeah. Lizard. Got it.
Good job. Let's see. Should we maybe sleep first before we cook lizard?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's dark enough, might as well.
That way we won't, get attacked. I'm gonna light this bonfire.
Hopefully we won't get attacked.
Why am I lighting the bonfire? Because I want to.
Okay. I mean,
I don't know if it has any
I
function.
still only vaguely understand this game, so I'm like, cool, great. I'm sure. I'm sure it has some kind of use.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure it does.
did laughing that much give me the hiccups? I think it might have.
Did it?
A little bit. When I hiccup, though, I don't usually like make a sound when I hiccup. Just like, it just does the whole like sharp intake of air thing.
Oh.
Oh
Like,
hey,
you
I didn't
see
know we
many
could cook
hiccups?
things in here. Huh?
Yeah, it's a fire.
Oh, I just didn't think that we could. I don't know. I didn't think we could cook things on it.
Yeah, it's just the regular fire like we have outside.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It
I
makes
just-
sense
I
when I
just
think
put
about it
it in
for
the
more than 2
fire.
seconds. It makes sense if I think about it for more than 2 seconds, but I rarely do that, so. I rarely think about anything for more than, I don't know, just a very, very short amount of time.
There's a reason. Or there's many reasons we get along, but this is one of them.
Just give lizard. I still need to wash off my body. I'm still all bloody.
Well, there's the ocean down there. Have fun.
Oh, hey, that's another irrational fear thing of mine that I can talk about. I'm terrified of blood for no reason. Well, there's a reason. The reason just being like weird trauma things from my childhood, but I'm so scared of blood. It's not good.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's there have been situations where I've done dumb stuff just because I'm afraid of blood. Like I had one time. This was when I was young, and don't do this. Nobody do this. I was cutting open a roll, and I was holding it in my hand as I did it. Don't do that. And like as I pulled the knife through, it hit like the kind of like the webbing on my thumb. Like right like the crux of yeah, and it hurt. It was not good. Also, that area bleeds a lot. So,
Yeah.
so I immediately go into just a panic, and I'm literally just standing there looking at my hand, and I just keep going, oh, like I'm not doing anything. I'm just staring at my hand until my stepdad came to see what I just kept going, about, and saw that like my hand was bleeding really badly. So he just like stood in front of me and like cut off the view from my hand and like got a bandage on my hand. But I was standing there for a while, just like freaking out about it.
Dang.
Which is funny because like I'm not super upset by like gore in movies, but like there's sometimes where I'm like, ugh, but like yeah, real blood, nope, nope, goodbye.
Timber, by the way.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm a little bit away from you. I'm gonna go run in the ocean. I think. Oh, lizards! 2 lizards.
I just watched a lot of the symptoms of ADHD happen all at once.
It's fine. I took my Adderall before this. I'm fine. I'm gonna go run in the ocean now.
This happened. Oh, I'm gonna go run in the ocean. Ooh, lizard!
They just ran past me. I don't want to pass up the opportunity for free food. I should do this in an area that isn't this dumb. Let me go to the beach. I'm not gonna jump off of a cliff into the water and then not know how to get back. Hopefully. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. Oh, I need to drink a soda. There we go.
Soda.
I have a lot of soda.
Forgetting my chainsaw isn't hotkeyed.
This is my brain cycling back, but no, I think I do want to do, like, at one of these, sometime or another, just movie watching in Discord. Because I like watching movies, but I like watching movies with people more.
I do too.
Yeah. It's like, even if it's like just me and like the voice chat, like just streaming, like I think it'd be fun. I'm very tempted to submit my Discord to Malignant. Because I'm still not over how absolutely insane that movie is.
Wasn't there another movie or show you wanted to do a viewing of in Discord?
I remember saying that I would do Space Jam 2.
Oh, right.
I'll do it eventually. I'm still haunted by Space Jam stuff. Like, it's still inescapable somehow.
Well, because see, you made the mistake of, it's currently very memed on right now.
I know, and that's why I like started doing research into it, but like I figured that at least by this point, especially with like how just absolutely mid-tier Space Jam 2 did. Actually, this is absolutely an ADHD moment. I want to see if Space Jam 2 is actually profitable. I don't think it was.
Wait, did it come out?
Oh yeah, Space Jam 2 came out in the summer. Yeah, that's how little people cared about it.
Wow! Oh, wow!
Yeah, Space Jam 2. Space Jam 2 came out. What day did you come out? It was like in August. Oh no, it came out in July 16th. What is your gross? Show me your gross.
How gross street?
Let's see. So box office gross is 171 million. That's okay. What was your cost though? What was your cost v gross? Show me this, please.
I just got an achievement.
Oh, for what?
Don't save the forest.
Oh, just for chopping down all the trees?
Yep, for chopping down 1,000 trees.
Oh my god, it's gross. It's so shit. Okay, so,
what is it?
So Space Jam So their estimated budget is $150 million. And when
Mm.
they estimate that kind of stuff, they estimate purely how much it costs to make, not how much it costs to advertise and distribute, which tends to cost a lot more money than you would think. And their
Oh yeah,
gross, their worldwide gross was 162. So they made a profit of $12 million.
that's terrible.
Yeah, I believe it's like for a movie to truly like break even after advertising, you want to make at least 20 million in additional gross. So Space Jam 2 lost money, which is all I could really hope for. That's all I could ask for.
I don't honestly know how they thought it was a good idea, but you know, whatever.
Oh, Space Jam 2's been a thing they've been trying to make forever. I'm
I
still
know,
mad that
but
we
like
didn't get Skate Jam with Tony Hawk. That was in
that
talks. That would have been
that would
sick.
have been better.
They also wanted to do like a kind
I
of Rush
remember all
Hour
the
themed
ones.
kind of thing with Jackie Chan. That would have been fun.
Yeah, I remember all the. You went through all the
Yeah.
ones they were considering. I think on your stream.
I think Golf Jam, obviously, they wanted to do Golf Jam with Tiger Woods, and that didn't go through for obvious reasons.
Yeah, Golf Channel.
Yeah. Also, just the gross in the U.S., just North America, the North America gross was $30 million. And that was it for its
Ouch.
whole theatrical run, because I think it's mostly out of theaters now.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I would think so, because July, with it being October, usually they're in there for like
Wait,
3 months-ish, 3 to 6, depending on how popular
was
it
there
is.
even movies in theaters in July?
I believe so. I think it was released in theaters. If
My
if not,
timeline
and
was.
that's like a streaming gross. Oh yeah, no, it had a streaming and theatrical dual release.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes
Still,
sometimes I just get so happy when I see certain movies don't make money.
because there's certain movies that don't. They shouldn't have been made.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it restores my faith in humanity. Yeah, it absolutely restores my faith in humanity when like certain movies like they
Oh,
kind of
Timber.
on paper sound good. Oh,
Timber, sue me, Timber.
I'm okay. That actually didn't hit me.
It was so close to hitting
It
you
was very
though.
close to hitting me. I saw it kind of happen.
It's
It's fine. I'm fine. It's fine. I'm
Because
fine.
I said it, and you stopped like a deer in the headlights.
Well,
I was like,
because I don't know where you are. It's okay. It's fine. I didn't die, so it's fine. You know, I didn't die. It's good.
as long as you don't die, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Say, so if I shoot you in the foot and you don't die, it's okay.
Well, like obviously, I'd rather that not happen.
Well, yeah. We would also rather a tree not fall on you.
Yeah. But like, if I don't die,
You know.
I mean, like, it's not the worst case scenario. It's not the best case scenario, but it's not the worst
But
thing.
it's just a prank, bro.
Ooh.
Oh, neat.
Storm's
I
coming.
actually think I do need to turn the game audio down just a tiny bit. Gameplay?
This is a very, very random observation, but just like I recently did an update on my laptop, and my laptop in like the bottom right hand corner
Sure, can hydrate, thank you.
will show like the weather and stuff. And since I've done this update, it's shown this weather status of quote rain's coming, rain or like rain coming. And for some reason, every time I read that, I read that in just like some like old prospector kind of way, of like some old man like
Rain's
looking
a-comin'.
at yeah, exactly. Every time I see him, like, nah, rain's coming. I'm like, why are we? Why is that a thing that they programmed into this?
Rain's a coming.
And also, I should say, every time I've seen it say rain is coming, it has already been raining. It has already been raining for quite some time.
Well, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of the things where I'm like, who made that choice?
Who knows?
I think about that kind of stuff all the time. That just like
Who
Just
comes up
because I
with these
sit and think
ideas?
about stuff forever, I just think about, like how someone had to, invent bread. I think about that a lot. Especially with how complicated it is to make bread. Someone had to figure that out.
These sound a lot like stoner thoughts. I'm not
They are
gonna
not. These
lie.
are genuinely just things I think about sometimes.
I know they're not, but they sound a lot like.
Oh yeah, they absolutely do. But I just
It's
sit and
like
think about stuff a lot, and just sometimes I think about like how things came to be, and sometimes it's bread.
sometimes it's bread.
Cause I mess up making bread. Like when I have a recipe, I could not imagine just like throwing things together and being like, well, I hope this doesn't poison me. Like,
I think it's probably like someone was like, I'm gonna I'm gonna just put these things together, see what happens.
oh gosh, on your right. The turn around, turn around, turn
Oh
around.
fucking!
Hi. Stop
I
that.
didn't hear it.
I'm just gonna take out your kneecaps. No, I've never touched one of these with a
Nico
chainsaw. It's kind of
kneecaps.
fun. Ah! Okay, maybe now it's less fun. Hey. Hey, stop that. Stop that. Okay,
Careful.
I'm down. I just wanted to kill a thing in a fun way.
I'll get you up. Don't worry,
It's
it's
okay.
dead now.
No worries.
No, it's dead. You're fine. I can get you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No, I'm gonna
Take some drugs.
army boy. Yeah, I mean its name is literally Armsy, so
Its name is
yeah,
Armsy?
its name is Armsy.
I kind of love that.
The spider
is-
one,
it
that's
is-
called Virginia.
Oh no.
Oh,
That just makes me sad. Just after In Sound Mind, I'm like, oh, Virginia.
yeah. I just
Poor
thought of
girl.
that.
It is still very funny. It's still very, very funny just to pick a name out of a
Yeah.
hat like that for it.
So yeah, Virginia.
Yeah, what do you want to call this? Virginia? I don't know.
Just ones aren't. I think the fat ones are called like Cowman or something like that. I don't know.
I just love
Something
when
like
developers make like just really random names for things because like, oh, we gotta name it. What do we name it? Armsy.
Yeah. We gotta push this
Or
out.
just like names that felt like placeholder names, but nobody really wanted to change them. Timber, by the way, if you're
Yeah.
anywhere near me.
Okay.
I didn't think that you were, but
Timber.
oh.
It's coming for you. Go left.
Ah! I'm slowly. You would think, being 178 years old, that I would have learned by now that like to dodge things you should move to the left or to the right of it. But I genuinely just went to the Prometheus school of running away, where I just keep running faster in the same direction and hope for the best. But do you know what that's a reference to? The movie Prometheus?
Like, I think so.
There's a scene where Charlize Theron is running away from I believe it's a spacecraft that is entirely round and it's rolling, and is going to crush her. And if she moved very slightly to the right or to the left, she would not have died.
Yeah.
Like literally 3 feet to the right or to the left, and she would have been fine.
Yeah.
So like I just remember hearing like forever ago, Timber, but it's not. You're okay. I just remember hearing on like a movie review somewhere that wasn't even talking about Prometheus, like referring to a character as having gone to the Prometheus school of running away. So I just think about that all the time. Very funny about how like a strong majority of the things that I do are just whole cloth taken from just random things that I've seen.
That's
Like I keep saying, drugs because of that just one online video of the owl that just says drugs.
drugs.
I just never say it any other way because I've gotten I started doing it as a meme, and now I don't. And now I can't stop.
Do you want drugs?
But I realized I went through my entire InSound Mind playthrough without like really explaining why I did that. So I'm sure at least one person was like,
yeah,
why
you were
did
just
say
saying
drugs
drugs
like that? Why did you say drugs?
I'm gonna be honest. For a while, I just assumed. Oh, just saying drugs weird.
Just saying things in a because I just say things in a weird way all the time. That's
You
absolutely
do.
a valid thing. No, I absolutely do. I don't
Very
know
much.
when that started. Also,
I mean, I do it too occasionally. So it's...
yeah, like I don't know when I started just saying things weird, but it's been a thing that's happened for a very long time.
I'm
To
glad
the point where people have commented on it in real life. Like, why do you say things like that? I don't know, man. I don't know. I wish I did.
So you want to know how I used to say bread?
Ow.
I would go brach,
Brech.
brach.
Oh, hi!
I'm going to
Hello!
get brech.
Hi! What are you doing here, friendo? No, 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 no. Hey! Cut that out. Stop that. Leave me alone. Stop it. Stop it.
You stop that, mister.
That's pretty much that Velma meme. You stop that. I use that meme a lot, actually. Mostly because I have friends that torment me.
Same.
Did I actually kill it?
I
Oh,
did.
no, you killed it. Okay, cool. I am once again covered in blood. I just ran away to change weapons.
I'm the one who murdered everything, and you're the one covered in blood.
Yep. Because I was stabbing it with a chainsaw.
That's
oh my
right.
god, why did you jump over Senti and just come chasing me? Oh my god, there are more. Where the hell are these guys coming from? Excuse me.
Oh, we are relatively close to a camp.
Kinda. But like, these are not the guys we were fighting in the nighttime. Where do you guys even, and all just at once, really. Hi, stop it. Please, stop it. Thank you. There. Are you done? Okay. I think you're done. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, they did.
I'm gonna carry these bodies back to camp. I accidentally ate mushrooms.
Uh-oh.
It's okay. They were fine.
Okay, good.
But it was an accident. And I could have gotten poisoned.
Yeah, that could have gone bad.
I must burn the bodies.
Yep. Burn the evidence.
I just want their bones.
I mean, that too.
But yes, also burn the evidence.
Like, I know there's nobody here. Like, that's kind of the point of the game, is that there's nobody here, but also, you never know. I don't want to go to jail for this.
You never know.
You never know.
I honestly don't even know, like, geography. I assume we're, like, in, like, North America somewhere?
I see,
Only...
I've kind of thought that this was, like, Appalachia area?
Oh, no, because we're on an island.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I don't know, my brain was just like, Appalachia, because one, there's mountains, kind of the distance over there. And two, like, the Appalachian Mountains are like, have so many, you know, like, myths and rumors around them, because they're spooky.
Oh, I mean, there's actually cannibals.
In Appalachia?
Yeah.
Okay, that might also, I probably have seen that somewhere, and I was subconsciously remembering
it. There's rumors a lot of, like, okay, so there used to be a lot more than there are now. There's, like, very few, just because most of most of the mountains are, like, mapped out and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would assume that, like, you know, at this point, it's pretty, pretty habitated, or at least, like, has been...
Well, the mountains aren't necessarily... Well, I mean, the mountains are habitated,
or, like,
by
has
little...
been... I'm trying to think of the word, but, like, has been, I don't know, not discovered, I don't know what word I'm thinking of.
I know what you're talking about,
yeah, though. Yeah. There's cannibals everywhere, bro. I mean, potentially
yeah. I mean, yes, there is cannibals everywhere, but
I don't think I've met a cannibal. At least I'm
That you
assuming that
know
I
of.
yeah, I'm like that I know of. Absolutely, yeah.
For all you know, I'm a
Say thank you,
cannibal.
Eddie. Aquapunk, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. How are you doing today? Also, if
Oh,
you want to
Ryan,
answer the question of the day, I'm asking people what their irrational fears are. You do not have to answer it, but if you do answer it, I will not use it against you.
I might.
I just have
I'm
a lot
just
of
kidding.
irrational fears and I have fun stories.
Bone.
Bones? Oh, are they bones?
Bones.
Bones. I should, since I was talking about, like, I don't know why I say certain things that way, I don't know why I say bones like that. I don't know where that came from.
I mean, I literally just said bones the same way, so.
Yeah,
Bones.
I don't know. Well, but I didn't get it from you. I know I didn't pick it up from you.
I know you didn't. No, you didn't get it from me.
Because a lot of the stuff I have. Clowns, heights, sharp, stepping on. Oh, you know what, Aqua? We're right around to like the same level of weird irrational fears.
What happened?
I'm only sometime like I'm not super afraid of clowns. I've been kind of okay with that. I am afraid of heights sometimes. Oh, no worries,
Heights
Aqua. Thank you
sometimes.
so much for the follow and have a good rest of your night. I appreciate it. Hope to see you again soon.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Have a great time.
I had a friend. I had a friend growing up who every time I left her house, she would do the Princess Bride quote of "Bye, boys, have fun storming the castle." Every single time.
I love that.
I have a lot of. Yeah, nice meeting you as well, Aqua. Have a good rest of your day, and or night wherever you are.
I was wondering why you were just standing there. Then I
I'm
saw
in my
that
inventory.
I saw your inventory icon was open.
Oh, is there something? Is there something I need to be aware of? Something bad?
Oh no.
Okay, I was like,
No,
what's
no, no.
happening? Oh, I need to eat. Or should
I
we
just
go?
saw
Should
that
we
you were standing
sleep?
there in the
Maybe.
dark. Uh, yeah, we can go to sleep after I place these
Okay.
two
Yeah. No
logs.
worries. I looked at the exact definition. I've not. Pawn, you are so much
None.
stronger than I am. I have
None.
so
Zero.
many. But like with my fear of dark windows and stuff like that, like
Oh, we
that's how
can't
I
sleep yet?
know when something is like good quality horror. If something can trigger my fear of dark windows, that's usually me being like, oh, they did a good job
I
scaring
guess.
me. Because that only shows up if I'm like really paranoid and scared.
So, irrational fear
Mhm.
would mean like there's no rational explanation as to why you would have this fear, or
It's more of like you're like really scared of it, even though like feasibly it can't really hurt you. Like most
okay.
likely it won't. Like I have a friend who has an irrational fear of balloons, just because when they were younger, like the popping noise like scared them a lot as a kid. So now they're afraid of balloons just because there's the possibility that they might pop around them. So like just like stuff like that. Usually it's stuff that happens when you're a
Gotcha.
kid, because stuff that happens when we're kids just like messes us up forever.
Like bugs did to me.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Also afraid of balloons, Aqua. Yeah, apparently it's like not the most uncommon thing. But no, like I have mold, dark windows, bugs sometimes.
Sometimes. Only on the
Excessive or
weekends.
I wouldn't exactly define it as like excessive or unreasonable, but it's just like something that scares you that like it's not gonna hurt you. Like with my mold thing, like maybe, you know, if I breathe in that weird rare mold at some point in my life, but that's the exact definition. I've always interpreted it as something that like just, you know, it's a fear that you have that's not super substantiated. Oh, Aqua, that sucks. That's rude, honestly. If I was young, that probably would have messed me. I'm also super sensitive to sounds, Aqua. Like you'll notice, whenever I have the chainsaw out in this game, I will immediately put it back as soon as I'm done using it because the sound bugs me. Just
I
not
also
not
do
when
that.
yeah, not when like other people have it out, but it's like close enough to me that I'm like, nope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
repetitive noises, man, can't do it.
I'm the same
Did I
way.
just eat a raw thing? I don't think so.
No, you can't eat raw things.
Okay. I also hear appliances hum, Aqua.
So
Is
do
this a
I.
neurodivergency thing?
It might be a
Is this
neurodivergency
an
thing.
ADHD thing? Yeah, sometimes it is annoying. Like that's how come I have to have like sound on at all times. I always have music going, or like when I sleep, I have a YouTube playlist of random. Hey,
Same.
Aqua, ADHD squad.
Oh god, it is an ADHD. It might be an ADHD thing.
It might also be an autism crossover because I know I have some friends who are autistic that like repetitive noises drive them insane.
Maybe. Because see, I have these like I bought these headphones specifically to wear that because they're like flat and a headband that I can wear while I sleep.
Oh, I got some of those forever ago, but now that and that was when I lived with people, obviously. But now that I live alone, I just don't worry about it. I just play things on my laptop.
Well, I still live with people, so
That's
I
actually
don't
that's
know what
very
I'm doing.
interesting to know, Pon. Thank you. In Aqua, like I
Feeling good.
literally, this might be a slightly heavy conversation, but I'm gonna continue with it. I literally do not look down on people who like self-diagnose, especially like as an adult, especially on with ADHD and stuff, because ADHD is seen as a very like young child thing. Um,
Yeah,
my brain resets a lot when I'm on stream. I've had that happen to me before. I'm actually pretty okay. I've gotten stuck on words before. I think I'm kind of okay on stream, but I think that's because I have a lot of experience with public speaking. So I'm just kind of okay at this
you
point.
do have your moments, but it's
Oh yeah.
like how we were talking earlier, and you're just completely
Could not
blanked.
think of the word. Yeah, but I think a lot of people kind of get that. But like there are times like
No, I meant like you
where
like don't like
literally
what we were
my
talking
train of
about.
thought stops. It like stops and I don't even know what I was thinking of. Who am I streaming with?
Yeah,
Oh
because
yeah, I should maybe introduce you. This is Senti. He's a good friend of
oh
mine. He's been streaming with me since I started pretty much VTubing. Why am I using
yep,
an ad?
also a mod.
Yes, he's also one of my mods.
I do my best.
No, I appreciate it.
Oh,
I
there's the
know
other
literally
body.
nothing about moderating. Timber, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't know if head pat will work on Senti. Actually, I don't even know if the head pat redeem is working right now.
I thought you removed the head pet redeem
I might have.
because I haven't seen it in forever.
I feel like I put it back. One second.
Where did my dead body go?
Yes, I can
Things.
absolutely link you here, Aqua. Give me just one moment.
But wait, where? Sue me. My dead body disappeared.
Oh no!
I went to put it in the fire. When I put it down, it just went. Boop. Oh god, that scared me. Thank you for following.
There's the link for it. Oh, thank you, Exceed, for throwing the shout out in there. I appreciate it. For some reason, it wasn't like
Thank
showing
you.
Senti when I tried to do the shout out on my end. Oh, and thank you for the hydrate redeem as well, Aqua.
Because you do have to do the name afterwards. If so, like if you
But like
just do shout out, nothing happens.
I
You have
tried
to
to type
do
your
like.
name in after it, and it wasn't seeing you for some reason.
Did you do Sento again?
I didn't do Sento again. Leave me
Leave
alone. Oh, I'm sorry that I woke you up with like that startling noise, Exceed. I'm sorry. I hate being woken up by stuff like that.
I too hate being woken up by the sound of chainsaws.
just any like sharp noise waking me up. Bad time.
Chainsaw is actually something I've woken up to.
Oh God, nope. Nah, I'm good.
Not over. Not like over me. Like somebody down the street was cutting down a tree,
Oh yeah. Oh, I've had that happen. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
or not cutting down the tree, but like cutting off branches.
Yeah. But no, hey, I'm glad that you're enjoying the stream so far, Aqua. I have a set schedule. I stream on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. Senti, I don't think that you have a set schedule, right?
Mm.
That's
No.
okay. No, I usually stream at like 6 p.m. PST. So if you ever want to catch me, that's usually when I'm there. Sundays I do 4, but yeah, usually 6 p.m. But yes, see ya. Have a good night.
Bye. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, and Exceed, I guess I'm glad that I woke you up. Just because you have to
Hey,
do
that's
work,
good.
I guess. I don't know. It's helpful.
You have to do work, I guess. I
I
guess.
guess. West Coast, yeah, West Coast, BB. I'm not
West
exactly on
Coast,
the West Coast.
baby.
I'm close to it. So that's and actually I don't know if I mentioned this on
These-
stream. I'm actually not in like the Pacific time zone, but
No.
all of my schedules are in PST because one, that's just one that a lot of people use, and two, the people that really wanted me to be a VTuber are all on the West Coast. So I was like, I'll just make it easier for them. It's fine.
Also, to be fair, no, a lot of people don't seem to use your time zone ever.
Oh God, no, 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 no. I've talked about where I like the area I live in. Yeah, so I'm not uncomfortable saying I live in like the mountain time zone, so I'm 1 hour ahead of Pacific.
Yeah.
But like nobody uses this time zone.
I know one person who uses
Yeah,
that
MST.
time
Yep,
zone.
yep.
Yep, MST.
Oh, Pon, you didn't know that? You didn't know that I did that because I'm like, oh, it's easier for like Pon, Finn, Jess, and Cerise to figure out when I'm streaming. Yeah, it was multiple factors, but originally it was just like, just so they can like know when I'm streaming a little bit easier since we live in different time zones.
If you don't mind, I will be right back real quick.
Oh yeah, no worries.
I need to, for one, shut off my ceiling fan because now it's getting cold.
Ugh, I hate
Also,
the time of year where like just randomly it's like, oh, suddenly suddenly cold.
yeah, because like all of last night I was hot because I was used to cold temperatures and I was like, we're gonna be like 67,
Mhm.
and now it's like, oh, now it's like 40 going into 30.
Oh god, oh gosh, I'm glad it isn't that cold here yet. Also, Aqua,
Yeah.
I should throw out there, Pun is going to be on my stream on Friday. I'm doing a special stream Friday at 6 PST. Pun and also my friends Jesse and Finn, who are always in my chat, and they're the reason I do
I'll be right back.
VTubing. They're going to be doing Phasmophobia with me. So if you like Pun's name, she's super cool, and you should come see her and all my friends on my stream on Friday. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of running around the house right now. That's okay. Hey, no worries, Aqua. Honestly, yeah, no worries at all. And if you ever want to check it out, I save all my VODs. Also, understandable. Understandable to be scared of ghosts. I've had some situations. I'm not super scared of ghosts, but I've had some situations where I've been like, don't like that. Pun and okay, hey. Okay, yes, yeah, go, Aqua, leave. Not that I'm kicking you out of my stream, but it seems like you have stuff to go do. Yeah, I'm gonna go wash the blood off me, I guess. Again. I'm not being rude, it's a thing with ADHD. It takes about 7 tries to end a conversation. Because then someone will say something else and then the conversation will continue. You're so... I didn't know that you were scared of Ghost Pawn. Oh, well, I guess I could have figured that out. Aqua, go! I'm very happy that you're hanging out and stuff, and it was good talking to you, but also leave. Oh, and thank you for the host! Every person I know that has ADHD, our conversations last forever, and we say like, oh, okay, yeah, well, I gotta get going, and then like the conversation continues for another like 2 hours. It's very common. I have explosives. But like I'm scared. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Phasmo is like genuinely like they do a really good job of making it spooky. Yeah, they do a really good job of scaring you. I'm excited to see the update. It'll be a fun adventure where none of us know what's happening. But I mean, like, of all times a year to do a big update, like it'd be kind of lame if they didn't do it around Halloween, right? I know, Pun, I'm sorry. just preemptive apologies for any scares that happened on Friday. Let's see. Well, I could probably get more. Just want to see what I can make with you. Oh, hell. I didn't want to equip a stick. No. How do I see what you can do? Is it that? That's it. Arrows, snowshoes. Can I make better, not bad arrows? I guess not. Okay. Bone arrows. That's neat. I need more feathers, though. Oh, we don't have a feather catcher in this camp. I should make one. Where's the... I would like the thing that does the feather thing. I want the birdhouse. I would like a birdhouse. Please and thank you. Birdhouse? Birdhouse. Birdhouse? There is one. I know it exists. Please. Storage. No. Where in the hell? It exists. It's real, I swear. But I'm not gonna fuck around and find out. That's a mood. If I hadn't had like certain things happen to me, I would also be in that same camp. But I'm very much in the I'm not gonna fuck around and find out. Can I please? It exists. It's real. This thing that I'm thinking of, I know that it exists. Birdhouse, there it is. Damn. Okay, 4 sticks. 1 low. I want to build a birdhouse, please. Yeah. There's a log over here. Senti stepped away for just a second. Had another case of forgetting what to Google right after opening up Google to look for something. That happens to me daily. If not every few hours.
I'm here.
Hello, welcome back.
Thank you. I made a joke when I came back.
What was the joke?
My stream heard me.
Oh god.
But you didn't.
Okay.
It was basically just me, like, because as I put my headphones back on, you said that I stepped away for a moment, and I was gonna be like, "What do you mean I'm right here?"
That would have scared the hell out of me. Also, I made a birdhouse so I could get more feathers.
Oh,
so
you know how else you can get more feathers?
I know, by killing birds, but also I don't want to. I don't have a whole lot of arrows left, so if I could just get them without having to use more arrows.
You can also use this.
Huh? That's true. I don't think I'm skilled enough for that.
I mean, they just land right in front of you. You just go, boop.
Feather. Okay, now I can make bow and arrows.
So.
Hell.
Cinto.
Okay. How many bones do I have? I have 7. Perfect.
Bones or no bones?
Hmm? No, I have bones. I have enough bones.
Never mind.
Oh, I didn't want that.
I don't. To be honest, I don't even know what it was. I just know there's a thing going around. People just going bones or no bones.
No, I do not know that.
I think it's like from what I remember, I think it's an ADHD thing.
Oh, it might.
But like, you know how some people like there's like the spoons.
Oh.
Thing. So for like ADHD, it's like bones or no bones. So it's like, if you have bones, it's a day for you where you like are productive and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No bones is you're not productive. You just lay there.
That just makes me think of I had a friend in high school who randomly would come up to people and like hug them, like do like, oh hey, how are you, and like hug them, and then and then just
Mhm.
like whisper in their ear, boneless, and would like just drop limp. And he was a big guy too, so he would take a lot of
Oh,
people down to the floor.
uh, I I had a friend who did something similar. Like he would come up to me.
Mhm.
He's like, "Hey, Senti, how you doing?" He just like lean on me, and then you go, "Uh oh," and then he just drags me down with him.
Yeah, like back when like boneless was like a meme.
Mm-hmm.
Just I would think about that all the time. Every time I saw somebody type like the boneless, I would just think about that. That guy was like genuinely one of the funniest people I've ever known. He was 10 out of 10, super funny guy. I haven't seen him in forever.
Well, wherever he is, I hope he's doing well.
Me too. I saw him like randomly when I first moved back. Well, when I first moved where I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just like just randomly. Not seen him since. I like followed him on social media and stuff so I could try and contact him and get back in touch, but he doesn't use socials very often. So I'm like, oh, I don't know how to talk to you. Oh.
He's just the bear.
Yep. Eventually, just I'll probably randomly cross his path again at just one point or another. I need food, kind of. Oop, oop.
Kinda.
Kinda.
Kinda food.
Kinda.
I have. If you need kinda food, I have little food.
Oh, I just got a bird thing off of the drying rack, so that'll be fine.
You can't put birds on the drying rack.
Oh. No,
You put
eat
a
this. Eat.
you
Eat
put a, like
consume.
that's
There
a
we go.
whole ass like deer thing.
Oh, yeah, so whatever the little itty bitty meat thing was here, that was like a dried meat thing, I took that.
Yeah,
Good.
that was a deer.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I thought, didn't I kill a deer and pick up deer meat? Oh, I totally did, and I just couldn't see it.
Okay.
Okay.
We have defenses set up.
Yep.
Um,
For some reason, like in my little handbook thing, it still says that we need to set them up, but we got them. We're good. We are defended.
I think it's. I think there's like specific things that wants to set up, but it's
No.
fine. We don't
Nah.
need them.
Yeah, the things I have in my to-do are find a way to climb rock walls, find a way into the sinkhole,
Yes.
and then
so
obviously find our son.
yes. So we need to find the climbing axe.
Mm-hmm.
And I vaguely remember where it's at.
Yeah, I could not even begin to guess.
So let us go.
Yes. Let's go climbing axe quest.
Make sure to close the gate behind you.
I will. Please. Please. There we go. Okay.
You got it.
I got it. It's all good.
Yeah.
Do you need food or anything?
No, I already ate.
Okay. And I still like my one little piece of bird meat, so if either of us get considerably hungry, there's at least that.
I also have bird meat.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Could be mistaken. I think the cave is this direction.
I'm just following you. Again, this is just a forest walkabout for me. I don't know what's going on. I'm just here having a good time, man.
The name of this anime is Sumire Hanaki's Forest Guide.
Yep, that's pretty much what it is. Because Senti knows what's happening, and I'm just along for the ride, really.
The thing is, I know what we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's more
how.
the location.
Yeah, or
it's
the
more
where.
Yeah, it's the where.
Oh, well, that's not good. Okay, all right.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, and there's another one. Oh. Should we try?
Don't worry about it.
Have we gone to this camp? Should we try and grab stuff out of here while it's daylight?
Okay.
Is this one that we've been to before?
Is the sun rising or is it going down?
I think it might be going down, actually.
Oh.
1 second.
I thought. Didn't we just wake up?
I don't know. We haven't looted this place yet though, and it's kind of small.
Yeah. What's in here?
Interesting. Let's see.
My.
Wah.
I found not cool clothes.
I was gonna say, is it closed? Because like every time I've broken open a suitcase for the past little bit, it feels like it's been closed.
Oh yeah, the black ones are they're
Oh,
not the black ones, but the ones with like Louis Vuitton
yeah.
suitcases are
I haven't even
closed.
like paid attention to how they look. Now I know. Now I know.
One
Okay,
of
but yeah,
them is
sun's going
robes.
down, so we should probably go.
Yeah, I should probably head back.
Yeah, let's go.
Actually,
Yeah, we'll head out in the morning. It'll be good.
I honestly thought it was the morning.
I didn't know. Honestly, could have
It
fooled
just
me.
goes to show you, morning and evening are the same thing, just reversed.
I mean, yes.
Yes.
That is true.
Heed the words of Sinto.
I mean,
Who are you to scream in my general direction?
if you say my bread thing is a high thought, I feel like that.
Sinto?
Morning and evening
Oh,
are the
morning.
same, just reversed. Is a very
Okay.
stoner thought. Because I just if you say it with the right inflection of voice, like, yo, dude, like morning and evening are like the same, just reversed. Like
It's just like one's going up and the
other's going
down.
man.
Yeah, you got it.
I don't know why I can do that voice. I don't even have any friends that are like heavy stoners or anything.
I mean,
Not stereotypical stoner, I should say.
yeah. Like I'm not. I've been around enough stoners.
I mean, valid.
I've also been high around other high people, so.
Which could be a time and a half.
Oh, it's something. I remember. I don't know if I should reveal the age of when I did this. When I was much younger,
Mhm.
I remember I was high, laying on I was laying on on my driveway
Mhm.
with one of my brother's friends,
Mhm.
and we were looking up at the stars,
Mhm.
and he was just like, "Hey, we need to listen to this song while we do this." And I was like, "What song?" He's
Mhm.
just like, just look, or he said, "Just look."
Mhm.
I think he meant to say, "Just listen," but
Great. Perfect.
and
Yes.
and you put on I can't remember what the name of the song was, but it was a Pink Floyd song.
Oh my god. That's so
And
stereotypical.
it was
just playing Dark Side of the Moon.
I think that's what it was. And you were just staring up at the stars, and he's just like,
Or like Goodbye Blue Sky or something. I can see Goodbye Blue Sky being one. I think that's the name of that song.
That's annoying.
Literally, just pick a song from The Wall.
Yeah. But and he was just like, "Do you see it?" I'm like, "What?"
Do you see it, man?
He's like, he's like, "We're going further in." I was like,
In
"I'm
what
not nearly."
way?
I'm like, I am not
You're
nearly
like,
as high as
we're
you
not,
are right
we're
now.
not, we're not in the same,
You-
we're not in the same train of thought right now, my friend.
It's like, I'm stoned. You are fucking baked.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, you're not. Goodbye.
You are gone, my friend.
No,
you have
yeah.
ascended. He was going off into the stars, and I'm just like, all right.
I don't have any fun stories like that because, like, I do I have like a little vape pen thing,
Hmm.
but I only use it to help because some of my medications take away my appetite. So if I just like feel like I can't
Hmm.
eat, but I know that I need to eat, I use it. So I just literally just use it by myself.
Yeah, yeah. I
I've never used it around other people, and I feel like I would be very boring. I think because I just sit.
see. You would think that, but when you're around other people, because when I do it just for like my medical purposes, because I also use it sometimes when I can't eat.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to, and sometimes it'll occasionally. I'm not sure what the right term for it is. Flare up,
Mm-hmm.
but an eating disorder,
Ah. Mm-hmm.
and so like I'll use it for that or my really bad migraines.
Oh yeah, I've used it like for painkiller stuff too, because I'll get like abdominal cramps sometimes, and it helps with
Mm,
that. And also at the same time when I get those, usually I don't eat because my body's like you hurt. No, so it helps on both
yeah.
of those.
So yeah, when I use it like that, I'll just like sit there
Yeah.
and just like watch YouTube or something.
Hmm.
But when I'm around other people, I'm like, okay, but what if? What if we? And
I'm
I'm just
quiet a lot
like,
in group settings, so I feel like unless it's like just one or two
I
people, I
am
would still just
too.
be very quiet,
Well,
kind
that's
of
the thing.
sit.
I am too. I'm usually really quiet in group settings. Like when I hang out with my brother, like he has these friends, Mark and AJ. They're
Mhm.
a gay couple,
Oh. Mhm.
and they're amazing. I
Mhm.
love them. They also cook really good food.
Ah, goals,
Um,
really.
like I like, cause you know, like I'm comfortable with them. I'm just usually quiet,
Hmm.
but I think AJ specifically knows that when I get high, I get more
Talkative.
chatty,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and so he's like, here, bub, just take a hit of this. I'm like, okay.
And then does he just like kind of prompt you to talk or?
Yeah, he'll just be like, how you doing, like stuff like that, and then eventually I'll just start talking, and then I'll just be like, wait, what if we, what if, and I'll just like go off on something.
Man, yeah, no, I have been around other people who have been high, like not while I've been sober, and literally, if anything starts with, "Hey, what if?" like, it's gonna be the dumbest thing you've ever heard in your life. and
But the
and
thing is, when there's other high people,
it
you
seems
sound like
smart.
you're like the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, since I don't drink really either.
Mhm.
I'm
I don't
constantly like the
either.
sober one at parties, and it's really funny sometimes. Oh hey, picture.
I
Oh,
think I have drank maybe 3 times in my life.
I drink maybe 2 or 3 times a year. More if there are conventions.
Mm.
I drink at conventions.
I haven't. So fun story.
Hmm.
I've only been to one convention
Oh.
because so I went to one in 2017
Hmm.
because a friend paid for me to go and everything,
Oh, that's nice.
and we both dressed up in like Fallout cosplay.
Oh, that's fun. I'm sure a lot of people like that. 'Cause
A lot of
you
people
don't
want to take
see it.
pictures with me.
Oh, I found a thing. I think a toy
Uh,
piece.
yeah, toy piece.
Okay. Um, yeah, because
But
like a lot of people, I don't see a whole lot of Fallout
yeah,
around,
okay.
so I'm sure
There's
people were excited about it.
yeah, a lot of people. Like I had people like wanting to take a picture with me. I had people like yelling at me across the convention.
That's so fun, right? I love that.
Yeah. Um. So I was going to eventually go to another con in like 2020,
Hmm.
I
Oh
think,
yeah,
and
womp
then COVID hit.
womp womp. Yeah.
and everything was canceled. So I was like, oh, I need to not be in the water right now because
Oh,
my breathing apparatus is almost empty.
oh, mine might be as well.
And your breathing thing does not auto refill while you're under
Oh,
there,
great. Okay,
and you can't open your inventory
when
underwater
you're under
either.
there. Okay, cool. Okay,
So
so I
yeah.
refilled it, so we're good.
Yep. All right. Let's go.
Yeah, I go to so like usually in usual
Mm-hmm.
situations, I tend to go to about 3 or 4 conventions per year.
That's
I
more
go to
than I've gone to.
quite a few, yeah. Because there are
I
two that are local, that are yearly, and then I go to SoccerCon in Seattle. A lot.
Ooh.
Sock is so great. I miss it so much. And then just like sometimes randomly, I'll just like go to other like smaller things if they're close, or like
There's a thing
maybe
down
like
here
go to Vegas
somewhere.
because Vegas has some cons. I haven't been to a
Oh
Vegas con in a
yeah.
long time though.
I just say I don't like going to places like cons alone.
Yeah, it's not as fun if you don't go there with friends. But like a strong majority of my friends I've met through cosplay, so like they're gonna be there too.
Yeah. So that's why I've been excited to hopefully this year like go with some people to cons.
Yeah, yeah. I think next year because the two local ones have already happened this year. They did still have them, um,
Mm-hmm.
and I just was like, nah, man. Why am I swimming so slow? What's happening? Why am I really slow? Am
I
I
don't know if you
dying?
press.
Oh, I might be freezing.
Yeah,
Huh. That can't be good.
I will make a fire.
Thank you. Um,
Yeah, like I wouldn't go to a con now, but I'm talking about like maybe later in the year.
yeah, I'm thinking
Like
because SoccerCon is usually Easter weekend, and I'm like, that might still be a little bit too early, so I'm probably just gonna go to the ones around here next year.
if
'Cause they're
I
like,
mean if I can, I'll go with you.
hey, honestly, the cons around here aren't that great.
I mean,
That's how
I
come I
just want
drink at cons.
I want an excuse to get in a costume.
That's fair. Yeah, I think doing one outside of where I am right now, because there are better ones to go to than the ones that are around here.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. Again, for me, I mean, I'm one of those people. As long as I'm with like somebody's company I enjoy, I have a good time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I've had lots of fun at just random cons. Like the one of the cons around here is really small, and it's very like the crowd skews a little bit young. It's a very like teen con. But the hotel that they hold it
Uh,
in every year does have a bar and they do themed drinks all the time. So
nice.
like literally my friends call it day drink con just because there's not a whole lot for us to do than go
That's
into the
fair.
bar at like 1 p.m. and just hang out there. They have like a big fire pit and stuff, and we just kind of hang out there.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's fun. I won that bar's Halloween themed costume contest in 2019.
Nice.
I did a witch Uraraka from My Hero Academia.
Mm.
And because I had had several drinks, I was very much hamming it up. The reason
Fair.
why I don't drink very often. I do dumb stuff.
A lot of people do.
Yeah. Especially if I drink mixed drinks. I've only drank wine on stream for a reason.
Uh, I there's a lot of alcohol I just like can't drink because my body's just like no, can't no. You will not
Yeah.
enjoy this in the slightest.
Yeah, my alcohol can't taste like alcohol. I will die.
I mean, my alcohol can taste like alcohol, but it's like the stuff I usually drink is like whiskey or
Oh, I can't do whiskey.
um what's it called? It's Italian amaretto.
Oh yeah, I love one of the first drinks I ever had was an amaretto sour. I haven't had one in a long time. They're good. They're just slightly acidic. So like
Yeah,
yeah, so that it messes me up sometimes.
yeah. When I first tried, I was like, like it enough that I'll get somewhere on it.
That's how I was too, because it's like really sweet. So,
Mm-hmm.
so like with my very very strong sugar addiction, I'm just like, yeah, no, this is good. This is fine.
Oh, we can probably leave you.
Oh yeah, I was like, oh, what are you doing?
We're just sitting here.
We're just chatting. It's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
It's good. No, you're
Yeah.
good. Usually my drink of choice, the most basic kind of a white girl drink. I drink vodka cranberries pretty much everywhere I go.
I can't with vodka.
I
And I have a fortunate thing where for some reason my brain just doesn't like fruit.
That is
So there's a lot
unfortunate
of
because
mixed
I love
things.
fruit stuff. I love so much fruit. I love fruit stuff.
Yeah,
I think it makes up for the fact that I don't eat vegetables.
See, here's the thing. I will eat vegetables all day.
Most people will. I know it's just a me thing.
But for some reason, my brain is just like, nah, no fruit. You're not going to like the taste of anything. You're not going to like the texture of most of it.
A lot of fruits I don't like the texture of, so I get that.
Where are we now? Oh, this is the chainsaw room.
Oh. Did you just see that arm jump up into the air? I think that might have just spawned in. It literally just leapt into the air and then fell down.
That might have been... Bonk.
What are we bonking?
I just bonked it. Yeah, that.
See if they got cool stuff. Continue my hoarding problem. There's things. I see. Hello.
There is things.
Hi guys.
You wanna
Don't.
fight the
Hey.
things?
All right. Stop that. Stop that, please. Please stop. Stop, please. Stop it. Stop it, please. Stop it. Please just die. Please. Thank you. I'm gonna stab you again just to be safe. All right, one more time. Okay, cool. I think I got it.
Good job.
Yay! I did.
Hello, sir.
Oh, hi! Oh gosh, more arms just spawned in on my end and they just kind of dropped from the sky. Hi, stop it. Hi. Hello.
I like how you're just poking him with a spear.
Yeah, why not? It's working. Hey, come down here. Come down here. Hey, coward. Oh, I'm down.
It's okay, I got you.
He's okay.
Boop, 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 boop.
Yay! Thank you.
You have been revivified.
Yeah. I have three more things of drugs. I'm running low on drugs.
3 more drugs.
3 more drugs.
Drugs.
Oh, hey, soda.
Alcohol.
Oh, hey. Do I also have alcohol? Oh, I do.
Neat. We all have alcohol.
Hey.
I'm going to...
Lighter here for a second.
Boop.
Oh, is this a missing persons thing?
It goes
What's this?
nowhere.
Siblings still
Maybe.
missing. Huh. Well, I'm sure that doesn't mean anything. I'm sure that's just here just
I
by
see.
crazy random happenstance.
Hey, don't come over where I am.
Okay. Why? I'm gonna stab boxes. I don't think there's anything in these. What
That's
did you
why.
just do? Oh, did you blow something up? Okay.
Yeah.
I have explosives as well. I keep
Dynamite.
forgetting that I do. I have dynamite and explosives.
Nice. Anyways, into the tiny hole.
Okay.
It would help if I had a light.
Whoop.
Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
It's actually short enough. You could
Yeah,
just
I was
drop down.
like, I could probably just jump, huh? This one though, no. This one though, no.
not this one.
This one, no. This one we gotta use the ropes.
Yeah.
Oop. Oh.
I mean, you
Oh,
probably
well, this looks kind
survive.
of sad, actually. What's up? Okay, another picture showing a thing. All right.
It's a treasure marker.
Yeah, there's another one right outside the entrance that we went into. God knows I'm never gonna find it because it's next to this one tree, and I'm like, fucking.
Oh
There's
yeah.
so
oh,
many
never mind.
trees.
One thing we can try to do eventually is find the gun.
Ah, that'd be nice.
Just like a flintlock pistol.
Oh,
I did that because I could.
eh. I got a little bit stuck on it. Okay.
Hello.
Hello? Are there any
Hello.
people here that are gonna try and
Yes,
kill us?
there
Oh
are.
yeah, there are. Hi.
There's. I'm gonna throw dynamite down there.
Oh, do it. See what happens. Hi.
Sound like a threat.
Oh. No, I just
Like, do
honestly
it.
want to see
See
what
what
happens. I
happens.
actually just want to see what happens.
I think there's water down there, and it
And it put it
extinguished the
out.
dynamite.
Okay, one second.
Oh,
Let me
here we
grab
go.
my.
Here we go. I got it.
Oh, yay! Did I get him?
I got the babies. It didn't finish off the one dude.
Let's see. Where are you? Hello, one dude. Where are you? Oh gosh, when I do that, it takes off my light, so I
Isn't it?
really can't see you.
You can with the crossbow though.
I don't
That's
have
what
any
you can use
crossbow
one hand.
bolts.
It's okay. I got it. Where is he? Wait, actually, where is? Oh, there he is.
Oh.
Got him right in the head.
Hey, good job.
Thank you.
Oh wow, yeah, he is charred.
Hey, I found it.
Oh, the axe. Oh,
Yeah, the
hey,
climbing
yeah.
axe.
Neat.
Now we have
Oh, we've got the thing, an ad for the chainsaw. I'm assuming that's just to, you know, let people know that there is a chainsaw in the game.
yeah.
We
We
already have
do
it.
now have every essential item.
Oh, hey, yay! My to-do list got updated.
The
Oh.
only thing we don't have is the modern bow.
That'd be neat. Because this
It
bow
is
kind of
a
sucks.
much better,
Ah.
yeah. Which we
Ooh.
can try to find.
Can we climb down this with the climbing axe? 'Cause this looks neat.
This no.
Can we climb down the big hole that we saw last time? The big chasm thing? That like threw things down?
Not with the axe.
Okay.
We will be going down there.
Just not with the axe.
Yeah. In fact,
How
I
do we
think...
get down there then? That's concerning.
Oh, that is the one place I actually do know how to get to.
Okay.
Which you just go through some caves. What's this clothes?
Snacks! Yay,
Found a new
snacks.
clothing outfit.
Oh.
Yes, it's the wolf shirt.
Oh my god! Oh my god, that's so funny. I love that.
Listen,
Fucking moon shirt.
I would unironically
course.
wear this shirt. Maybe not in public, but I would unironically wear it.
Oh yeah, no, I have stuff that I have that I just wear at home. That's just because I think it's fun.
Because wolves are actually like my favorite animal.
Oh. Hey, I want to break this. Nope. Okay.
Wait, where'd the cave I just saw go?
Huh?
Okay, I
Where
need
did
to
you
go
go?
back up.
Where did you go?
There was a. I'm right
There you
here.
are. Hi.
Hi.
I want
There
to
was a
break
cave
open
I saw.
these. I want to break these open, but I can't.
Oh, maybe
want
if
the
you push them
stuff.
to it.
That's too much
Okay.
work. I just want the
Oh,
stuff.
this isn't actually a cave. I thought it was a cave. It's not a cave.
Hmm.
But there might be something down here. Oh, wait, actually, I just remembered there is another thing besides the bow we need to get,
Oh, uh-huh.
and that is the key card.
Ah.
Yes.
I would have never known that, but okay. Yeah, okay.
Why am I swimming so... Oh, because I'm cold.
Yeah. That was what was
Let's
happening to me
get
earlier. Yeah, let's get out of
out
here.
of the water.
Out of the water.
Out here the
Water.
water. Water.
Now, I know I say water like that because of Jenna Marbles. I know. a small
water
portion
all
of
kinds of
my
ways.
personality comes from Jenna Marbles jokes.
I say all kinds of... Or I say water in all kinds of ways. Man, I cannot formulate sentences tonight.
It's okay. I miss Jenna Marbles every day. Not a day goes by that wouldn't be immensely improved by Jenna Marbles returning to YouTube.
I didn't even know she left.
Yeah, she voluntarily just stopped. It was actually very sad. It seemed like she was kind of going through some stuff. And her boyfriend, since they had, a podcast together, that had to stop, and her boyfriend's still doing stuff, and he's doing great, and I still love watching his content. And they've started fostering greyhounds, which is so cute. Yeah, they have a little girl right now that they're fostering. That her name is Lobster. I've shared the video of Lobster.
Lobster.
Yeah, that's Lobster.
Yeah,
that's Julie, and that's Jenna's fiance now. Actually, they got engaged a couple months ago.
Aww.
Yeah, but she's been off YouTube for for over a year now. And it's sad.
Fair. I didn't watch her, so that's probably why I didn't know.
No, that's very valid. But no, she just kind of mid 2020 had a moment where she was just like, well, she kind of like there was some old content that she made that was genuinely questionable that she's apologized for time and time again, but she felt like she was still getting kind of called out for it and just kind of wasn't getting a whole lot of happiness out of it anymore, and so she was just like, I'm just gonna stop, maybe for just a while, maybe for forever. And yeah, all the time I'm like, I would welcome you back no matter what. Pumpkin, hi! Thank you so much for stopping and saying hello. I hope you have a good early day tomorrow and a good rest of your night. I appreciate you saying hi. Can I please have this? How do I use Climax? Climax? How use?
Oh, I didn't use the Climax to get up.
Oh, did you just jump? I can't. How am I? I can't jump.
Yeah. Here, I show.
Okay.
Watch.
Hello. Yes, watching. Yes, watching.
Hua.
Okay.
Hua. Hua.
Okay.
Hua.
Why can't I do it?
No,
I'm jumping the same place as you, where I can't do it.
You don't do you do hua.
Qua. Qua?
Hua.
Qua is not working for me. Qua.
No, not qua. Hua.
Qua. It's not working for me.
You okay. So.
Oh, I'm also cold.
Here.
Maybe it's because I'm cold. Are you cold? I'm cold.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. That might be why I can't jump very high.
Don't make a fire here.
Okay, yeah, maybe not. Yeah, that's definitely gonna be.
Okay, first, actually, yeah. You know what? Fuck it. Let's make a fire here.
Tiberius, did it sound like we were saying quoi?
I hear French.
Yeah, like
no,
quoi?
no. I was just making noises. Gotta do hua.
Quoi? I don't speak very good French.
I don't speak any French.
I have a friend who has a degree in both French and Italian, and so I've learned from them, and that's about it.
Okay, so you see this little ledge right here?
Yes.
Get on that.
Okay, I'll do it after you.
And then when you jump up,
okay.
you jump up and then you go forward.
Okay, jump up and then go forward. Okay.
And then, hold on. Actually, where?
And then,
where was this
yeah, just jump up and then go forward. Yes,
Hold on. There's like this little.
Mm-hmm.
So. This right here, this little tiny rock thing jutting out. You gotta get on to that.
Okay.
And you gotta like catch it just right. And then once you catch it, you can just Skyrim jump your way up.
Okay. Oh, we Skyrim jump. Okay, I know that. There we go.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, all you had to say was Skyrim jump, and I would get it.
Oh. yeah. You just Skyrim.
I'm gonna fall. Oh, I didn't fall. Actually, I haven't fallen while platforming in a second in a game. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
I had a lot of platforming yesterday in Insound Mind, and I didn't
That's
fall.
a baby.
Really. Oh no. Hello, baby. Oh.
I booped it with an arrow.
Oh gosh. Yeah. No, I just saw it just kind of fall over. Hi.
Hi, baby. Instead of kick the baby, shoot the baby. Don't shoot the baby. Shoot the baby.
Actually, I didn't even realize it, but I was actually doing another Princess Bride reference. Just the way that I said it, which was "Hello, baby," which from Princess Bride,
Oh.
it's the I found 4 white horses, and I thought there are 4 of us if we ever find the lady. Hello, lady. I've watched The Princess Bride a lot. my dad, it's one of my dad's favorite movies.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying that before.
It's
Where are we
Princess
now?
Bride. He's watched. I've watched a lot because of him. His favorite movie. Oh my god, I'm forgetting the name of it. I feel really really bad right now. Shit. Kevin
Should
Spacey
feel
in it.
bad. I'm just kidding.
It's a heist movie. Kaiser Sose. I'm gonna get there eventually. Kaiser Sose. I'm gonna get there. Uh,
you
Usual
said
Suspects.
heist?
Usual Suspects.
Ah,
I got there.
good job.
It's a good movie. I've actually done a
Well,
monologue from Usual Suspects for theater class stuff. At the end, there's the whole monologue. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. I've done a lot of weird monologues actually. Now that I've thought about it, but I purposefully chose weird ones because like I found a lot of other monologues boring, and I competed in monologue. So I was like, if I'm gonna compete, I'm gonna do what I want.
that's valid. And I support
So
that.
so then I end up, doing a monologue from Ferris Bueller's Day Off for a scholarship competition that I did get
Baby.
money for. Oh,
Oh, baby!
two baby.
Bad baby.
No. Oh wow, that
Be
was
gone,
blue.
baby.
No. Oh, another one. Oh my god, that just launched itself at me. I watched that happen.
Be gone, spawn of Satan.
No. Nope. Nope. Nope.
Anyways. Ew, what's going on over here?
Oh, I'm hungry.
Same. Let's make a fire.
Yep. I don't have any foodstuffs on me, I don't think. Oh no, I
I
have snacks.
do.
I grabbed a snack. Where? Snacks. I grabbed one. I grabbed a chocolate bar. I know I did.
Well, actually, I don't have any
there it
cookable
is.
food either, so I will also eat snack.
I have another snack, but I can't like give it to you. I can't like take it out of my inventory and just drop it. Otherwise, I would.
You. No, it's fine. Also, you use this. Remember
Use huh?
this.
Oh yeah. No, I totally forgot. Okay.
It's okay though. I have snack.
Okay,
so.
you do? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
If you
Good,
need,
good.
I still have one more snake.
I appreciate. I also have one more. No, I have 2 more sneak. You ready to get cold again?
I'm okay. No, I'm good.
No, sorry. You're ready to.
Oh. No, yeah, I guess. Sure. I don't think I have much of a
Alright.
choice. Is that a generator? Oh,
Yeah, don't worry about it.
that doesn't seem like a good thing to have in water. I don't think it still works. Just throwing that out there.
I mean, the light was on.
Oh, yeah, so maybe it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
We won't get electrocuted from it. It's
Oh,
cool.
no, not at all.
Unequip the rebreather because it gets annoying having it in my face.
Oh, yeah, I've had this in my face like the whole time. Let me unequip it. There we go.
I mean,
Better.
you don't have to. It doesn't bother you.
I
It
just
bothers
didn't
me.
notice it, but now that you mentioned it, I was going to continue to notice it.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's not you. It's just like my weird blindness to certain things until they're pointed out to me.
Yeah, I get you. All right, now we climb this rope into the abyss.
Oh, that's fun.
Because if you look up, you can literally see
Yeah,
nothing.
yep. It's a whole lot, not much.
What's up there? Who knows? Is it good? Maybe.
I don't know. I'm starting to feel like maybe no. For some reason, this rock formation makes me feel like this might be bad. Something about this.
It's outside.
Yay! Okay, so it's good then. Unless there's like something that's gonna kill us immediately outside, then that's not good. But
Yeah,
yay!
this is the cave we would normally go down
Oh,
to go
okay.
get the climbing axe. But I'm a himbo.
No, we just went the wrong way. We just went a different way. We went on
There's
a detour.
another
Oh, is this
cave.
the big? Ooh, is this a big hole? Big hole.
Yeah, that is the big hole. The cave we go down to go to the big hole is over here, actually.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna mark
maybe
this.
grab some food and then go to the big hole?
Well, I figure we will skip food, rest for the night.
Neat.
Where's
our house?
Oh.
Over it's over this way.
I know, yeah. I'm just marker first.
Oh yes, good idea. Thank you.
Oh. Oh.
Boop. Okay.
I need.
Oh, I got it. My hoarding comes in handy.
I had cloth. I don't know why it was like no.
I have 150 pieces of cloth.
I have 229.
Oh my gosh.
Haha, get Rex.
Wow. Wow. God.
It's one of those moments where I'm like, where I ask people, so, you still glad you were my friend? Not regretting anything yet?
I guess it's fine, sure.
Ooh, and I guess. Ooh.
I always say I guess to those kinds of things.
Yeah, I know. You're good.
And just always imagine whenever I say it, it's that comic meme that's the guy shrugging that says, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the exact energy I bring to it. That's how I feel.
Amazing. Outside though.
Yes.
We can use climbing axe for most rock faces.
Ooh.
So you just walk up to it, press E.
Oh. Neat.
Here we go.
Whoa. Oh, okay, so just E and then just keep moving up. Oh, okay, I see, I see.
And because we're absolute chads, we can climb using one hand.
One hand, yeah, wow. So just absolutely ripped. I just got launched into the air. I was up in the air for a second.
That means it's working.
I don't know if I want to know what you mean by that.
It means it's working.
Okay. Can I please? Please? Yes, yes. Okay, there we go. It wasn't giving me the prompt.
For record, you can also jump and then hook on.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So you can be like a badass mountain climber.
Oh shoot, is it daylight now? We're gonna have to wait for
It's already almost day.
It's fine, it's okay.
It's fine. We do need to do hunting because it's a good idea to actually like hunt food and dry food and actually take it with you.
Is that our house? Which house is the house we're currently using? Because we have the two. Is it that one or is it that one? I think it might be that one. Because we have two home markers.
What? I only have the one.
Oh, I have two. I have our original one, and I have. Okay, I'll follow you. Yeah, I have the original one as well too. I guess.
I don't. Maybe. I don't know.
It's fine.
Maybe you're just crazy.
Probably. if not in this regard, in other ways.
We're all a little crazy down here.
Oh, I should maybe put my lighter away. I don't need it. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Fine.
I am glad we have this magical, seemingly unlimited fueled lighter.
That is nice, yeah. That is one kindness they have given us. Oh, I probably didn't need to go through the water for this, but it's fine. It's good. I'm fine.
Need
It's fine.
to, but just take a bath.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. Who knows how
Mush-
long it's been since our characters have had like an actual bath. Good for us.
Since we went diving in the caves a little bit
Oh,
ago.
fair. That's true.
Lizard.
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 And I guess since we're gonna be hunting and stuff, I'll also look up where the modern bow is.
Okay. Yeah,
Because
I
that
think I'm
way we
gonna
can actually
go.
use.
Oh, hey, there's the stairs. Yeah. I think I'm gonna go hang out in the house for a second, just so I can do just a quick BRB and go use the restroom real quick.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go hide in the house so I don't accidentally get attacked while I'm gone.
House is destroyed by the time you're back.
Honestly, wouldn't be surprised. I'm very cursed.
Get in there.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Great. All right, and I'll lock the door. Eh. Okay. All right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
so
I might
yeah.
need to get in there too.
Oh, no, you don't.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, it's unlocked. It's actually unlocked. It's unlocked. It's fine. I'm gonna sit in the bone chair.
The bone throne.
I'm gonna sit in the bone chair. Yes. Okay. But yeah, so I'm gonna be. I'm just gonna do a quick BR back. I'll be back in 3 minutes. Woo. Hello, I am back.
Welcome back.
Hello. Spotify, stop. Spotify. There we go.
Spotify.
It takes a second to stop itself. There we go.
Yeah.
To do that. Okay. Hello. Hello.
Oh.
Hello. Okay.
I am hunting turtle.
Okay. I'll do some hunting as well. Feathers, thank you. Oh, hey! I can make more bone arrows.
Modern bow is located in Cave 7.
Oh, I can't make more bone
Chasm
arrows. I can make
Cave.
more arrow
Where is
arrows.
Chasm Cave North, Sinkhole Caves South? So Chasm Cave. Cave 7 and 0.01.
Yay! I have more arrows.
The accessible entrance to Cave 7 to squeeze in can be found after crossing the northernmost land bridge connecting the peninsula to the mountains. It is the most difficult caves in terms of length, complexity, navigation, and number
Oh,
type of
yay!
enemy's presence.
That sounds fun.
Uh,
Oh, Edison is finally here. I know, Rabbit, if you're still in the chat, I know you wanted to give him a treat like forever ago, but he was not coming over. Hi, bud. He's finally here. This is for you. Yeah. Yeah. You. Please take it. Please take it out of my hand. Yep, that's a treat. You can take it. Take it. Don't just lick it. Take it out of my hand, please. Bite it. Bite it. Please take it.
Okay,
Edison!
I see.
Edison! Take this out of my hand. Stop licking it. My boy. There we go. Okay, boy has been treated. It was an ordeal, but we got there.
So, I think, I can tell the modern bow is in the cave that leads to, the big hole
Okay.
that we're going to.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm just gonna hunt food things.
Try hunting turtles. It's easy. You just wait for them to walk up to the shore and go boop.
That feels mean.
I mean, it is, sure, but
They're just trying to vibe, man. They're just trying to have a good beach day.
I'm trying to stay alive.
That's true.
Food chain, baby.
The circle of life plays in the distance.
I also needed another turtle shell to use as a sled, so.
Hey! Do I still have my turtle shell? I do.
Oh god!
Uh-oh. What happened? What was that?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm just walking around.
Did not hurt my ass going down a hill.
Say goodbye to your kneecaps.
More like say goodbye to my tailbone.
Oh, ow. Oof, ow.
Because that's what I did turtle sled.
My cousin bruised her tailbone once, and she's hurt herself in a lot of ways just because she does a lot of physical activity. And she's like, yeah, one of my least favorite injuries I've ever had was when I bruised my tailbone, because it was like a week at least of her not being able to like sit comfortably at all. I was like, oh, that would suck so much.
I have done the same thing.
Yeah, no, I've not done it, but
I don't remember what I did for it to happen, but
the the thing that she did to oh no, I don't want that. I don't want that. The thing she did to bruise her tailbone that was very, very funny. She was actually she was riding her a mountain bike through her neighborhood, and she wasn't paying attention, and she ran directly into a parked car.
oof.
And like slipped off of the seat and like just fell on like the bar that's like in front of the seat.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, so like obviously hurt real bad. She just thought it was very, very funny though, because she was like looking at something that was like down the road a little bit and ran into a whole ass car.
I mean, it is funny, but also ow.
Yeah, no, it's just like oof.
Also,
Hmm?
you want to know how not here my brain is?
What's up?
When you said she was riding a mountain, and then my brain immediately went, go?
Man, I wish. How cool would that be?
I was like, damn, was she a druid?
Like the fucking like the kid in Nichijou that rides a goat to school. I love that kid. That kid whose family owns like a goat farm, so he rides a goat to school. By the way, if anybody here who has not watched Nichijou, Nichijou is one of the best comedy anime ever. It's so funny.
Actually, you know what's funny? So I in the town that my grandma lives in, you can see strange things occasionally.
Uh-huh.
Not limited to things such as an Amish buggy coming down the road with a stereo system hooked up to it, blasting rap.
Bless. That is fantastic. I'm gonna eat this lizard. I'm starving.
That's fine. Also, a person of very, very short stature riding a goat. They weren't a kid. No, they're just a very short.
Just a person.
There's a very short woman.
Pun asks, are they allowed to do that? I guess. Oh, do you mean for the Amish? I'm assuming because there's probably a hair of it.
Apparently a type of electricity they can use.
Yeah, I don't know. I do not know anything about
like
the Amish.
A specific. I don't know.
Oh my god, Eddie, you just scared the hell out of me. That was a very
But
loud
they were
meow,
doing
bud.
There is also the fact that some Amish sects are starting to just like give less of a shit.
Yeah, I bet. Like at this point,
they're like, I'm this. They're like, we'll use the horses and shit, sure, because we raised them, but but it's not gonna stop them from blasting.
Blasting rap, apparently.
Blasting. What's that really fast Eminem song with Godzilla?
Rap God.
Rap God. Rap God. Rap God.
At least I think that's the song. Don't quote me on that. I do not listen to a ton of rap. As you can
either.
probably tell by like the entirety of me.
I mean, yeah, I listen to like metal.
I really don't have like a set genre that I listen to.
I don't have I usually say like when people are like, what kind of music you listen to? And if I go like basically everything, and people are like, that's not a thing.
I honestly do not know how to answer that question because like.
But I listen to all kinds of stuff.
I do too. Yeah, I don't have anything that I listen to like more than anything else though. I don't think. Oh hell, that was dumb.
I mean, the only thing I don't really listen to is like country.
Nobody say anything.
What?
I don't listen to new country. I'll listen to like older, like Johnny Cash country.
That I'll listen to.
Yeah.
Jeremiah said, fuck it, this song slaps.
The music is just too good, man. Oh, fuck. Hi, guys. How are we?
Well, there's a... Because...
That's a lot of cannibals. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Oh my god,
That's a lot of cannibals.
Run.
Yep, no believing. Goodbye.
Run.
Yeah, I looked and I saw one, and then I looked and I saw a lot more than one, so I'm just, nope. Bye.
Yeah, some people will be like, well, how did an Amish person even hear that song? I mean, outside influence, apparently there is actually like...
exists.
There's a, like a thing...
What?
When... Oh, I'm dead.
Where they, oh god, where are you even?
When they reach a certain age, they're allowed to go out into the world and live however they want for a certain set of years.
Yeah, Rumspringa. That's what it's called. Rumspringa.
Oh, I didn't know what the fuck it was
It's
called.
a really, really weird name, right? I only remember it because it's such a fun thing to say. Oh shit, there are so many cannibals around you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to... I'm gonna be able to get you up. I'm gonna be able to get you up at least. Okay.
Oh shit. Okay.
I was able to get you up, but they're still here. Running. I saved you for once. I think that might be the first time I've actually ever saved you.
That would be the first time.
Yeah.
Good job.
I just got punched in the back.
Can I drink this, you fool? Are you dead?
Go away! No, almost.
Okay. What?
Oh god, I just ran into another cannibal camp. Oh god. Oh shit.
I jumped off a rock.
Oh no! I'm very far away from you. 1 second, let me take some meds.
Did we save?
I don't know. I actually don't think I've saved in a minute.
I mean, I know I saved.
Me though, I don't know. Sorry, I'm on my way.
Well, I'm saying, like, if you can get away.
Oh, that's true. Okay, I might be able to get to you. I'm working on it. My stamina's gone. I'm working on it. Stop it! All of you. Come on. Hey, no! No! Get off my ass! Leave me alone. I'm doing something. Okay, there are 2 cannibals following me immediately. Oh, I'm about to die. Okay. Alright, you're up.
I'm up.
Run.
Okay, run.
I'm, like, entirely out of stamina. I'm trying.
That's fair. Let us run in 2 separate directions.
Yeah, I'm going.
I'm gonna go run into the water because I can't swim.
Oh, that's a good idea. I should try and find the water.
Well, if you look for my name.
Oh! I think they stopped following me. Because I'm just standing here.
Some of them were fighting each other.
Oh. Oh yeah, because one did punch one. Like it tried to hit me, but then it hit another one. Oh, hi! Never mind. Never mind. I'm coming. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Oh, goodbye. Oh, I just died.
Okay, hold on.
I fell off a rock as well.
It's okay. Alright, I got you.
I'm like wedged between 2 rocks. I fell in a really bad position.
We're in the summer. Take these meds.
All right.
Get my sword. Let's go. I'm coming, Sumi.
Everything I learned about Amish comes from this one horror series about Amish ghosts. That sounds cool, actually.
Amish ghosts.
Mm-hmm. I learned about Rumspringa from I think it was probably like a true crime TV show. I think it was like a cold cases kind of show where they talked about things because I remember reading about a Amish woman that was killed during Rumspringa. And so that's literally the only reason I know it. Which is very sad, but Okay, get to the water, they're behind me. Literally just called Amish Haunting. Ooh, man. I love those knockoff ghost shows that, like, they saw Ghost Adventures and were like, yeah, sure, we can do that. But then they choose, like...
they're behind you.
Oh, I heard them behind me.
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, I thought that I did. Oh, okay. Alright. If I can get out of the water, I'll get out of the water. It's cool.
Yeah, I looked behind us and there was nothing there.
Oh, I thought I heard somebody. It might have been you and I just didn't see you in my periphery and I thought it was them.
Well, what did you hear?
Running.
Yeah, that would be me.
Okay. Yeah, I just heard footfalls. You know, like
It's fine.
The weird haunting shows. Like there's one show that I used to watch, like that was literally just called A Haunting, and they had a budget of like about 30 cents.
About 30 cents.
Yeah, and like it was like a knockoff show, so they couldn't get like, you know, actually like spooky haunted places, so people would have to just kind of really hyperbolize the shit that's going on. Pond knows what's up. A Haunting is fun. It's not the lowest budget ghost hunting show I've ever seen, but it's close. There are definitely worse ones. Jenny Nicholson, actually, she talked about one that was called like haunted home inspectors or something like that, where literally it was like they would have somebody come in to like investigate the haunting, but they would also have someone with like a knowledge in like or like he was like an actual home inspector, and he would come in and like investigate the house for things that could be causing like the phenomena that they're experiencing. Mm-hmm. And if you think about that for more than 2 seconds, it's like, oh yeah, he's gonna like debunk everything within about 2 seconds. And yes, he does.
And he did.
Yeah. And what's funny is they put that in the middle of the episodes. So like every episode was the same. It would start with them interviewing the people and like a preliminary like look at the house, and then the home inspector guy would come in, and then after the home inspector had gone all through and was like, hey, yeah, this is why this is bullshit, they had a psychic come in like during the night and do like an actual ghost hunt and have, you know, had the actual gall to have that person be like, oh yes, I feel all the spirits here. when like, you know, 20 minutes ago, like not even, like probably even about 10 minutes ago, this guy was in there and was like, yeah, you guys just have like really shitty wiring, so you're probably gonna feel like the effects of that. And like these doors keep opening because they're not hung properly. If you fix the hinges, it'll be fine. Like, that kind of thing. I don't know why they did the psychic after. They need to do it before.
I think literally just so you could laugh at him.
Honestly, it kind of felt like that. But like even then afterwards, like they would still present both things to them. Like they would present like, okay, here's what the home inspector found, and then here's also what the psychic found. And it was like, what do you do with this? What do you do with any of this? I'm gonna go grab some food.
I'm cooking lizard.
Food.
Lizard.
I will also... Oh, I didn't mean to grab that one, but that's fine. That works.
Lizard is best food.
Lizard is best food. In this game, at least. I've never eaten lizard myself. I don't think that I would.
Have you eaten alligator?
No, I've not eaten alligator either. There aren't any alligators around where I live. There's
not any around where I live either. Yeah, we
true.
still get it.
You're closer to an ocean than I am, though. I'm 100% landlocked.
So am I, though.
Oh wait, no, yes, sorry. I'm confused where you are. Geography. I forgot geography.
I was like, wait. Yeah, because I'm nowhere near anywhere there would be crocodiles.
I have no idea why I thought that. It's fine. It's fine. I'm tired. It's fine. Leave me alone. Being landlocked sounds so distressing. It's hi.
Not really.
Not yeah.
It's just. I mean, I don't really go anywhere anyway, so it's whatever.
That's also same. Oh God. Oh. There we go. I couldn't see where the door was to get back into the gate. Yes. Much food.
Much food. Very yum.
Much food.
I have rabbit to contribute.
No. Changed my mind.
Oh, I was like, I thought you were aiming at me. I was like,
no,
whoa.
I was aiming at a bird over your head. I changed my mind.
Like, you took no account of my safety into it. You're just like, woo.
No, I was okay. It probably looked like I was aiming it directly at you, but I was like way above your head on my end.
This is what it looked like to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. No, I was aiming way above your head.
I was like, oh, okay.
So what are we working towards right now? What are we doing?
I think right now we're waiting for this food to dry. So we have enough to take with us. Do you have a water skin?
I don't think so.
Okay, we need to get you a water skin.
Okay. Do you use rabbit for it? What do you use for it?
You use deer for it.
Oh god, I have rabbit fur, I have lizard skin, I have the skin of a cannibal, I don't have any deer skin.
Okay, we need 2 deer skin, I have 1.
I have skin of everything else. Let's go find a deer, I guess.
Let's go find a deer.
Actually, I should put this on, I think.
A were lizard. Yes.
One second, let me see if I can combine this into anything neat.
Combine what?
Oh, just the lizard skins. Ooh, stealth armor. How many leaves do I? I have 155 leaves. I can do that, sure.
Yeah, I would have done that, but It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. I got an achievement for that.
Hey,
I'm gonna do another one just for fun.
Chivos.
Yay! Okay, I have armor. What? What? What?
It's just the way you're like,
Oh.
yay. So annoyed to me.
I didn't mean to sound like
Close.
that, sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm gonna
Oh,
close the gate.
close gate. Yep, okay. Sorry.
You're okay. Okay, let us find deer.
Deer.
It's better to hunt deer with spear.
Okay, spear for deer. Gotcha.
Spear for deer.
Spear total. I have
Unless
so
if you have
many
bow and
things
arrows.
here. I
Yep.
do have some arrows, but
Do you have
I'll
bow
do.
and arrows though?
I have some. Like I have a mix
Okay.
of bow and arrows and normal arrows.
Yeah, because the regular arrows, takes like 3 or 4 to take down a deer.
Makes sense.
Versus a spear, just takes 1 hit.
Ah, that's neat.
Well, 1 hit if you throw it.
How do you throw it? I just know stab.
You hold right click.
Oh, hold right click and then just press left click to just yeet it?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
I'll do that in the future. I'm not going to throw it now.
Yeet. Look, it's in a
Oh,
tree.
hey. I don't even know where you find deer. I'm assuming we just kind of walk until we find one.
Yeah, they're just like, in the
They're
woods.
just around. Hello,
Just hanging out.
deer.
You just find Bambi's mom, and then
No, that's sad.
Sorry.
I just realized my health is still really, really low, so I just took the last of my meds. I'm out of meds now.
I can make meds.
Oh, I think I might be able to as well. Oh, I
I'm
also
an
have health
alchemist.
mix. I have health mix.
Yeah, mix.
I have a lot of stuff.
Imagine having a lot of stuff.
I have so much stuff. I have too much stuff.
I mean, we have the same amount of stuff, really.
Oh, I don't have any aloe. Okay, so I can't make more
I do.
health mix. That's okay. That's
I
okay.
have 7 now. Well, if you need any, just let me know.
Okay, we'll do. Hello, bird. I do not know where you went.
I went across the river.
Oh, okay. That's why I couldn't see you. Okay, hi. There you are.
Hi. I also went across the land bridge.
That's fine. I'm already in the water. Also, I want this lizard.
That's fair.
No, come here. No, don't go in the water. No. Lizard.
I'm just watching you run around.
Oh, where did it go? Lizard! Gimme! Gimme! Sorry. Okay, that actually did feel a little bit mean. Sorry. Food is good, though. Thanks. Alright. Okay, cool, I got it.
Gimme! Now I feel bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Squirrel.
Rabbit.
Squirrel.
Oh, and a lizard just spawned. 2 lizards just spawned right next to me. Hi, guys. Hi. Hi. Hello. Hi. Hello. Where'd you go? Don't worry about it.
Right. You keep kicking it.
No, it was rolling by itself. I was also probably kicking it a little bit, but it was also rolling by itself already.
I mean, it was rolling by itself, but you also kicked it.
Deer. Hello.
Door.
I would like 1 deer, please.
1 deer, please.
1 deer. Hello. Hello, deer.
Hello, dear.
God. I walked right into that, actually.
Wait, what? I was just saying hello, dear.
Well, just it's like a greeting. I don't know.
Well, I know that, but
Brain
like,
weird. I don't know.
but I was
I'm
like,
literally I am getting hungry and I'm getting tired, so brain shutting down.
oh, that's
Brain
fair.
no work.
I was saying it more to the tune of like, "Hello, bees."
Oh, yeah. Hello, bees. Okay, yes. No, that's yeah.
It's okay.
brain is slowly stopping working.
You're
I
fine.
lose like a ton of IQ points the second I get hungry.
Same. Where's the deer though?
Yeah, for real though. What the hell? Deer?
Finding plenty of lizard.
Yeah, right?
There might be deer over there.
Oh, yay.
Hey, Sumi. Hi.
Okay,
Oh, wait.
Sumi's last brain cell is also the emergency food supply. Exactly.
Makes sense.
Huh? How do I get on the fucking turtle? I got on it. I'm okay.
So you
I
look
did it.
down, jump,
Okay. Oh, okay.
and then
And jump.
click.
Okay.
You have to jump. Look.
Okay.
And
I
then,
didn't know
yeah.
that the jump was a factor in it. I don't feel safe
Yes.
going down this part. I'm gonna go down this part.
This part just seems more fun.
Okay.
Whee!
Oh,
Fun.
hello.
Hi.
No, pun. That is very, very accurate. If I get hungry enough, I just stop making all sense.
Fair enough. Okay, be careful over here in this area, though.
Okay, why? What's up?
Alligator.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there were alligators here. I don't. Have we encountered an alligator yet?
I mean, I have.
I don't think we have since
Whether or not
like
you
when we've
have,
been
I don't
playing.
know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've gone over here while we were playing.
Oh.
There's a cowboy over there. Cowboy, cowman,
Oh,
whatever
hi.
the fuck those things are called.
Hi. Hello.
Look at him, he's just running around. He's just running in a circle.
Oh, yep.
Oh, there's also a big spider one.
Oh, they're just hanging out. They're friends.
There's a whole ass army over there.
Oh wow, yeah. Yeah. Nope. Mm-mm.
I'm gonna just, you know.
Yep. Yeah, you guys can just leave, please. I'm just gonna kind of look around.
Watch as the freakiest mutants in their natural habitats. Okay, I think they're gone.
I know. I still see the
not
spider right
entirely.
over there.
I'm gonna kind of skirt over this way.
Okay. Oh no. W, not Q. Thank you.
Yeah. Cue the walkie-talkie button.
I wanted the forward button.
You have to pay extra DLC for that.
to move forward. I didn't know this was an
So
EA
you don't want to
game.
crouch. Thank you for getting my joke.
For real though, where's a deer?
You
Deer.
know?
Hello?
Hello, deers.
Deer.
Oh, hey, crocodile. Or alligator? Whatever it's called.
I do not know the difference. I could not tell you. I know that there is a difference, and
Well-
it's like in the head shape, but I do not know.
One's a big old flat fuck. One's a thinner fuck. Oh.
What? Huh?
I've been spotted.
Oh. Hello, cannibal.
And
I
I
have been
am
spotted.
one of the,
Saw one.
I've been spotted by like the strongest.
Oh shit. Where are you?
So remember when I said the white ones were the strongest?
Uh-huh. Oh, there you are.
There's another one above that.
Oh.
The white ones with tattoos.
Oh. Oh shit!
This alligator's coming for me. This alligator wants me.
Oh god, oh god, oh god. I think the one with the tattoos has now come to try and get me. Hey, hey. Stop that.
In here.
Where did they go? They're over there. Stop it.
I don't know.
You.
But we should go this way.
Okay. Oh. There you go. Okay. It's gonna take us forever to get back just to find this one deer.
I did a sled.
I saw.
Yay.
Yay. Two deer! Behind you!
2 deer?
Two deer! Two deer!
Boop.
Hey, hey, hey,
I didn't
hey,
hit it with the spear. Oh god.
Sorry, sorry, sorry. Sorry, this feels very bad. This feels very wrong. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry.
Because you're killing one of your own kind.
I'm not a deer.
Oh, that's right, you're a cat girl.
I'm not a cat girl either. I am neither of those things. Okay.
So if you want,
Oh god,
if you want to see
cannibals, cannibals in literally every direction.
to me, the water.
Watch here, yes, okay. But now they're also gators. And I feel like the gators can get in the water.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Just follow me. Just
Okay.
follow me.
Uh-huh, okay, alright.
There may or may not be an alligator following you right now. But follow
Oh, really?
me.
Oh, great, wonderful. I'm just not gonna look back there.
Yeah, just don't look back.
Okay.
You look back.
That would have been funny. I didn't see anything, though.
It would be funny if the alligator just went womp.
Yeah, no, that would be perfect. The gators are fighting the cannibals. They are.
They are.
Which is good, because that means they're not fighting us.
The enemy of my enemy is also my
Exactly.
enemy. Fuck them.
Oh, hello, two more gators. Hi, leave me alone, please. Bye.
Yeah. They just drop like a shit ton of meat and
Ooh.
a shit ton of lizard skin.
Mm-hmm. Because they are a shit ton of meat and lizard skin. That's primarily what makes up an alligator.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Let me see if I can actually do this. Let me see if I can throw this.
I missed.
Oh,
No.
but I missed really bad.
Oh god!
I missed really bad. Give me that.
Where's mine?
It's
here's
right.
mine.
It's right there. Yep. Oh god. Ugh. Maybe I shouldn't do this. God, please.
Behind
Okay,
you.
that's already dead. It's already dead. Okay. Ah! Don't. Stop it. I feel bad. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. You gotta do it. You gotta do what you gotta
It's a
do to
dinosaur.
survive. It is a dinosaur.
Milk.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Oh wow, that's a lot of meat.
And lizard skin.
It's actually more meat and lizard skin than I can carry.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Seagull! Get out of here. Leave. Go away.
Hey. You moved out of the way when I threw my spear. Did you see my spear? Not you, the cannibal.
Oh, it's like, what? Me? No.
Oh, boy. It's
Oh, there's a lot of them. Let's
who-
go. Let's go.
It's the ones that wear people's faces as masks.
Oh, wonderful. Let's just get in the water and get the hell out of here.
Yoink.
Oh, shit. That was my kneecaps. Okay.
Not your Nico kneecaps.
God. Oh, man. I've
Sorry.
heard more No, it's okay. I've heard more Nico Knee jokes outside of the Love Live fandom than I ever heard when I was in it. I do not know why that is.
I started saying it when my Japanese friend kept referencing it.
It's the weirdest thing.
It is, but it's kind of funny.
It is funny. Nico's an interesting character. She is one of my least favorite of all of the Love Live girls, of which there are many. There's so many now. There's like over 30 now.
Jesus.
Because
Ooh, deer.
there's 9. 9 in each
I don't
group.
have a spirit.
And there are 3 groups now, and then the third group just added another girl, and then there's a 4th, like, offshoot group, so there's, like, almost 40 girls now, actually.
So like Hololive the anime.
Kind of. Just every so often they just, like, make a new group. Because, like, the previous group graduates from high school.
It's like VTubers graduate.
Kind of. It is very, very similar.
Well, I mean, yeah, VTubers are very idol.
Yes. Oh, yeah,
inspired.
it's very, yeah, absolutely.
Do you have another? How much deer skin do you have?
I now have 2, so I can do it.
Okay, put 2 and a rope.
And a rope. Gotcha.
And a rope.
Yay, I have it.
Yay!
Yay! Water
Don't
skin.
put polluted water in it.
Okay. If you say so, if I have to.
Well, drinking polluted water.
Okay.
We don't do that in this house.
So I just, like, we've been streaming for 3.5 hours, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured we could do that and then, or make the water skin and then wrap up.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Just, like, head back to the house so we can save.
Yeah.
And then we'll be good. Oh.
Yeah, and then
That's a big blob of a person.
that is that's the cow, man.
That's a big chunky.
Yeah, he charges you.
Okay, I'm gonna go not that way.
I think he also has an AoE attack.
Oh,
No, we can still
wonderful.
go this way.
Wonderful. Yeah, so yeah, definitely.
It's not a very big AoE, but it's
still something I don't want to deal with.
yeah, it's like he just like stomps. You know you can still go this way, right?
Huh? I'm
You
just
can
gonna
still
climb up
come
these
this
rocks
way.
because I wanted to. Okay,
Oh,
never mind.
That's fair.
Please let me go up rocks. One day I will get a handle on this thing. Okay, there we go. I'm up.
Up dog?
Don't try and up dog me.
Oh,
Oh, there he go. Uh-oh. Where are you at?
there you go.
Okay, I was like, oh, where are
I'm
you
right-
at? Because he's just running.
Yeah, I'm right beside you.
Okay.
Oh Lord, he coming.
Yeah. I'm just kind of going up and around, I think, is my plan for right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best thing to do, really.
Yeah. Okay.
Let him.
Yeah, let him do
Do.
his thing. Yep.
He's fine.
Yep. Oh gosh, we're about to walk into a cannibal area though, which is great.
Nah, it's fine. It's fine.
It's good. It's fine.
Fine. Look, it's a new moon.
It is almost, so that looks like it is a new moon that's going into the first quarter because the moon,
Wait, I don't want to go down there.
Oh, yeah, the moon grows full from right to left, if I remember correctly. So it's just like, it's kind of a first quarter moon, but not really.
That's you. I know moon phases.
I don't know why I know so much about moon phases. No, I do.
I mean,
I
used
have a
to-
lot of knowledge just stuck in my head, but
I mean, the thing is, like, I know what they are. It's just, for some reason, my brain's like, you're gonna say the wrong one probably. So,
it's yeah, you have a 50-50 shot basically.
yeah, it's either waxing or waning.
So waxing is it getting fuller.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason, so literally the only reason I remember waning is from a dumb mnemonic of like, oh, it's going away.
Oh, that's
literally the only way I
that's-
remember.
that's different from how I remember it, which is, I don't remember what it is from. I just remember a character going, "My strength is waning."
Oh, honestly, that works too.
So I'm like, yes.
Oh, going
Waning
away,
means
yes.
going away.
English, yes.
Yes.
Absolute garbage language, but it's fine.
I mean, it works for the most part.
For the most part, yeah. Every English teacher
Oh,
I've ever had has said that the English language is stupid as hell.
I mean, it is, but it is what it is.
Yep. Do what you can. Okay, I'm gonna hang out the meat things that I have to dry before I forget.
Yep. I
Boop,
do need to
boop,
eat
boop,
something
boop,
so I don't die.
boop, boop. I think that's everything that I have.
Just dying in my sleep would be bad.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't be enjoyable, I don't think. I
No,
will...
not typically.
Yeah, I'm gonna... Yeah, I'll eat this dried lizard. Why not? Okay. I've consumed a lizard. I will not die.
We'll also eat the right lizard.
I will not die in the night.
Lizard is best bedtime food.
It's like, let me save. Actually, no, let's sleep. Sleep and then I'll save.
Sleep and save.
Yes.
Give me the prompt, please. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Hurt my
Okay.
wrist.
There we go. Okay, alright. Saving. Maybe. There we go. Okay. Well, yeah, that's gonna be it for this time on the Force. Thank you for collabing with me, Senti.
Yeah,
Um,
always.
is there anyone in particular you want to raid? I'm just looking through my stuff.
Oh boy, I don't know if anyone I know is streaming at
Looks
this
like
time.
Yuki is streaming. Who else is streaming?
Sumire Hanaki's streaming,
Yep,
but I
yeah,
don't
I
think I
saw
want to
you
raid
too.
her.
Yuki's playing Zero Escape though, so I might send you guys over there because Zero Escape is a fun game.
I will send y'all to my friend Ray.
Cool, cool. Anything you want to uh promote or anything before we send everybody off?
Um, well, I do know I will be continuing Dark Souls 3 uh potentially tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
I'm aiming for tomorrow. So and that'll be roughly around maybe like 5 p.m. EST.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And as far as I go, I'm not streaming tomorrow, so yeah, go watch Senti instead of me. Next stream is going to be on Thursday. I'm going to be playing The Convenience Store, which is a Japanese horror game. Hi Eddie.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm going to be playing that. And then Friday we have the big Phasmo stream, and then I'll be doing something on Halloween. I don't know what. But yeah, again, thank you guys so much. For coming. Let me go ahead and hit the start raid button. Hi, Edison. Like actually, Edison just came in and jumped in my lap. Hi, bud.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I will raid my friend Ray.
Cool, cool. All right. Okay. Well, now that that raid is ready, Eddie, do you want to say bye to everybody? Good boy.
Just...
All right. Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye.